What is up, guys? Welcome back to the show. This is Bitcoin Audible, and we have got the Roundtable back at it. We get into some interesting things today. I want to make a note before we get into the show because we actually don't talk about this, but I have just been using AI a ton, and I've just realized it today. I've been working on a bunch of different shows and all sorts of stuff, and I have literally got like multiple things running right now. It's amazing how much I need to do another episode on how I've integrated all this stuff, or maybe just a video, because I keep getting people asking me about it. But I literally am using it just absolutely constantly. And I think I'm going to get to a place where I can share my DropClick app, which I really, really like. And it's super freaking useful. And hopefully it's something that other people can actually get use out of, but it works really great in my workflow. So anyway, we get into some really fun stuff today. We got Mechanic, we got Steve, we got Jeff back on the show. The Roundtable is back, and we talk about BIP444, the soft fork. We talk about a bunch of the news items, actually. We talk a lot about the samurai stuff. We talk about the pains and benefits of like actually using Bitcoin in the real world and everything that's happened with Square and the release of Bitcoin as a payment mechanism and all their merchant terminals. We talk about LavaBit specifically after their quite a bit of controversy and what they're offering and whether or not it's a red flag or not. Got some new updates and some really exciting stuff with UTXOracle from Steve. Some updates from Ocean with Mechanic. Discussions and rejections and complaints with all the soft fork proposals and what might actually have some potential of actually happening. Replay attacks and chain splits, you name it. We get into a bunch of great stuff today, and I hope you are ready for it because it's a good one. Roundtable is always a good one. A quick shout out to Ledin.io for Bitcoin-backed loans. And not only they're just a great company, I really like their service. And just the fact that they survived a bear market and they do proof of reserves just puts them high in my book. So, and good to have them as a sponsor too. They're good to work with. So shout out to them. Don't forget, there's a special link for you guys down in the show notes. Then we've got Chroma. Also been very happy. In fact, I'm kind of sad because I don't have my contacts in right now, so I can't wear my nightshades. But you got to get your hormones right. I'm going to put these on the second I'm done recording this. Get your circadian rhythm right. And they have really cool products. 10% discount with code Bitcoin Audible. Then check out pubkey.app. So Synonym has built this protocol stack to literally separate all of the platform and servers and processes that you run on the web with the users and the networks. And it's incredible. You just have to go check it out, especially if you're a builder. Link right down in the show notes. And then lastly, the HRF, they have the Financial Freedom Report, which honestly is an irreplaceable resource for keeping up with news around the world and all these other countries and authoritarian regimes, and basically seeing the dominoes fall on the cascading financial tyranny. And then importantly, all the tools and the fights and the stories for how to get around it. And I think those are critical lessons to learn in this day and age and news to stay up on. So they have the Financial Freedom Report. It's a newsletter that you will find right down in the show notes. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. This is Roundtable number 15. Conspiracies, culture rot, replay attacks, and the future of Bitcoin. How are we doing, guys? Welcome back to the Roundtable. Who's done all your Christmas shopping? Raise your hand.
Zero.
Mary,
Do I have to get? I'm not even in the country. Do I have to get people Christmas presents?
No, you don't. That doesn't get you out of this. You're not getting any.
Isn't Christmas presents are in the marriage contract? Like that was in the contract I signed with my wife. Like that's hers, I think. I'll have to check it. Get my lawyer on it.
She's gonna get all the Christmas presents for the both of us. We'll do the dishes,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. Page 6, clause 3. So, let's catch up. We actually haven't talked. I don't think anybody has. Well, except Steve. I saw Steve since last time. But Jeff, how are things? How's immigration going?
I don't know. It all sucks. It's all super fake and gay. I hate all of it. So, I don't know. We're hopefully everything is now submitted for Brazil. And I have a place rented in Brazil. So if we don't get there, like if they don't approve, I'm going to be out like 2 months rent, like one in 2 different countries or whatever. Yeah, hopefully as soon as right after New Year's, we're going to be somewhere warmer, and it's now like a blizzard outside right now. And I'm going to be happy to be away from that. But I also don't speak Portuguese. So, and there are fewer people in Brazil that speak English. So that's going to be an adjustment. But which is great. There are like models, like AI models that you can run on your phone that will record and translate pretty much in real time. And they translate in text. And so then I have I have another app that like translates my text into Portuguese, and so it's pretty. It looks like I've got backups for my inability to learn another language, and hopefully that'll be okay.
I think learning languages is one of those things you can put off for long enough for tech to solve the problem. It's going to be centralized as heck, but
interesting.
No, I'm locally running this. It's like really, and it's really not bad. Like my phone can handle it. So it's.
Well, I'll tell you, I had to get my travel HDMI cable that I always have so that I can hook stuff up and display things on my computer on the living room TVs. Busted not too long ago, and I didn't have a replacement, and we were trying to show Rad some crashing cars because all he wants to do is watch a YouTube video that his uncle Jeffrey showed him of cars being driven off a cliff and crashing and being destroyed. He thinks it's the coolest thing in the world. So I had to go get an HDMI cable, and sure enough, in this small town there is a Best Buy, and so I went to Best Buy for the first time in a very long time, and I tell you, it felt a little desperate in that place. It was still great. It was still cool. There was stuff everywhere, but I swear to God, there were as many people working there on the floor as there were customers in the floor or customers in the store. And it's like one of those things, like when you go to Ace Hardware, which Ace Hardware just feels like, oh, they just like are overly trying to be helpful. This one was like a little bit like, can I help you? Don't you want to buy something? So I got asked that like 5 different times. I was like, I just want an HDMI cable, man. But I did find, so I played with gadgets because that's what you do in Best Buy. And there were some Meta AI glasses, and they had like translation stuff built in. It has to pair with a phone, which kind of is like, is this really a huge benefit aside from the fact that you can translate text? So you can like hold something up to it and you'd be like, translate this into blah, blah, blah. And your phone will read it back to you. But yeah, no, that's definitely, that's one major step of Moore's law to like solved life. I feel like we're dumb close to that. You can cheat on the test. You'll have your AI glasses, and when they like require you to take the test that you know how to speak Persian, you just cheat. You just tech solves that problem.
Well, I don't have to take I don't have to speak Persian or Farsi. I have just Portuguese. And Portuguese would be like, they're more likely to have models that will translate Portuguese in real time than they are to have Persian. So,
yeah, Portuguese is Spanish is specifically, they're pretty close, right? I mean, they're.
Yeah, I don't know. It's not too bad. Like I've started learning a little bit, and languages like Spanish was never my favorite subject in school, but knowing the Spanish that I know is helping with Portuguese for sure. So, I didn't realize like there's a lot of stuff that I can just guess at, and it because it's similar to other Spanish.
It's like,
words or
okay, yeah, I
whatever.
understand.
Yeah.
So if it's just the robots doing it, like, how are you going to do the social hierarchy where you show that you're more cultured than somebody else by speaking other languages? Like, how's
That's just that's a system prompt. That's what you do that in the
Okay.
you do that in the AI. Can you add as
Okay.
much jargon as possible so that everyone knows that I'm smart?
Yeah. All right. Good.
Steve, how you been, man? What's new?
Oh, a lot of guys have this like dream of like owning a bar one day, and I'm doing it. And don't get me wrong, it is great. I am living the dream in some ways, but here's what'll happen. Your best friend will start coming, and your best friend will get in a fight with your best bartender.
Oh,
And
man.
there's just no freaking solution. And it's just tough because you got to make a call, can he be served or not,
Yeah.
so it's like emotionally stressful because one of my best friends and my best bartender, and I don't know who's right, who's wrong. I got to make a call on whether he can be served or not, and it's tough.
What's wrong with your best friend? I've never been in a fight with a bartender at all.
Yeah.
Not once in my life.
Yeah, when you start going through shit in life and then you get drunk at a bar and you just take it out on somebody. I don't know. But
that's when you got to sit down with your best friend. He's like, dude, you're being a dick.
Dude, I did. Dude, so I sit down with him. Probably shouldn't talk about this. I sit down with him, and then like 2 days later, he'll text me and he'll be like, "Hey, I've been thinking back on our conversation. God, just talked about this." Anyway, but other than that, dude, Bitcoin wise, I've become a little distant from the spam conversations. Haven't been followed that too closely, but UTXOracle work is like awesome. I'm still kicking an ass with that. I think I got a lot of new stuff I'm going to roll out into this year, beginning of next year.
I saw it on Start OS, but it didn't work when I fired it up.
What?
That's probably Start OS, not you.
What happened?
I don't know. It just didn't. Like, I'm going to install it again. Let's see what happens. UTXOracle.
I've been watching it. It gives me good vibes when I'm working on the podcast. I literally bring up the UTXO Pro or whatever, just like watch the big transactions come in the mempool, and I'm like, man, this is a crazy network. It still just blows my mind.
It's
that
real.
You can just look at it. It's cool as shit.
I mean, I know the spam stuff is a lot. I'm not like disregarding that, but still, the majority of transactions, not byte-wise, but people-wise, transaction-wise, are still financial transactions, and the financial transactions are just a beautiful distribution, and they're so consistent, and they're so people are using Bitcoin as kind of a unit of account in a way, because the average transaction sizes keep getting smaller, just like you'd expect if Bitcoin was buying them more and more. And you're seeing like human behavior, thinking of what Bitcoin can get them, like really playing out. Like it's beautiful to watch.
Well, according to the BTC, like the BCH people that are still in my Facebook, like follows or whatever, Bitcoin is broken. It doesn't work. Fees, dude, the posts that I see about fees being $55, like
What?
And I'm just like,
You mean 5 cents?
Dude, what planet are you living on? And I don't know. It's astonishing how bad. And of course, I don't know what's Coinbase charging people to pull Bitcoin off of exchange. Like still charging people $20 or something. Like it might be, but
maybe it's that.
So that's Coinbase. You're not using Bitcoin.
Yeah.
My shitcoin exchange charges me so much.
I mean, it's the narrative that, I was just personally so wrong about what Bitcoin would be in 2017, 2018. I think a lot of us were, we thought Bitcoin would just move to this settlement layer, right? I mean, we were even being like, Bitcoin will eventually just be in on international settlements between large institutions and stuff like this. And that has just not happened at all. Fees have just continued to go down. People continue to spend $100 on Bitcoin once per second. It's 1 out of every 4 transactions. It's become just like I don't know. I mean, maybe that'll change, but like it's almost the opposite. Like the BCH people's narrative. It's like it's like you're even arguing the wrong narrative. Like there's a problem here, but it's not that one. But yeah, things have been going great.
Sweet. Mechanic, how's it going, brother?
It's gone good. I'm kind of curious watching what's coming out of the proactive knots side that's coming up with, spam solutions now, rather than we spent kind of 2 years raising awareness, I guess, and talking about issues, but not really doing so much. And then it shifted into, all right, now we need something to do. Core 30's here. What are we going to do about it? And I'm kind of watching and learning. Like 444 came out, and that was like immediately controversial. Even the number was like people were dying on the hill on both sides. If it can't have that number, or it has to have that number, like just even the number, right? So
the opinionatedness of some of this shit is incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting to watch. Like, and there's a lot of ego and a lot of like people yelling at each other and stuff. And like, I haven't proposed anything, right? But everyone sort of holds me responsible for a lot of it, which, is fair to some degree, but I didn't write either of these BIPs, and I don't, I don't agree with what's necessarily in them.
Wait, was there another BIP? I didn't even see.
There's people talking about stuff. I kind of wish we were doing this next week, because I think there's going to be some like very big deal stuff come out over the next week or so. And that's going to be a fun one to discuss. And that's kind of all I can really think about at the moment. I've also been thinking about just how to get knots in a place where, people can't, people that are like genuine about it, but are like, look, Core has, these 100 people looking at it. It's been around forever. Like, we might not like the direction they're going in with it, but it's still, it's established and has a lot of inertia, as opposed to knots, which has been something that Luke has had to deal with and do most of himself forever. And I'm trying to think about how I would button that up and make it bureaucratically acceptable, if that makes sense. Like, if you know what I mean by that, just like, oh yeah, of course we've got this thing, that thing, and like, even if they're all security theater, you've got to jump through the hoops, right? So I'm just kind of thinking about how to do that. Basically, just button up knots, make it more legit, so to speak, because not everyone's going to assess it from like, look, man, you're just trusting Microsoft. It's on GitHub. Who cares about any like security practices beyond that? Like, not everyone's going to look at it that way, right? Like, so I have to, figure out what it is, and I'm a noob when it comes to GitHub. So trying to get that together. I've been reaching out and getting advice from people like, neutral people that don't have a dog in the fight exactly, but they're just like, oh yeah, when I went on the GitHub, I couldn't figure out, there was some merge and I couldn't figure out where the code came from in the first place. Things like that just make people go like, I don't know how to review this. Like, GitHub's confusing anyway, and the fact that it's a fork of Core makes it more confusing still. So I'm just trying to find out a way to make all that not just like technically transparent, but actually trivial to review the diff between what happens on Core and when it gets merged into knots. Because obviously the hashes aren't going to match, because actual code has to change in the process. But just trying to make it so that like, all right, here's the new version of knots. Here's everything that came in from Core. Here's what changed. Like, just make it really, reviewable and upgrade it in that sense. So that's what I've been occupied with primarily over the last few weeks, as well as just sort of winding down for the year as, and trying to get into hibernation Christmas mode.
Personally, I still think that's one of the best like routes, like in my mind, is that knots should be seen as the client with options. The one that puts the user in control of what they want to do on their node. And like, I think in doing that, you can also have the most useful node, because, a lot of things are being like I even get kind of the idea of like having a reference client thing that's like in the background, but like, I don't think we should get away from that, like, kind of full package of like, this is a node, like this does all the things. This has datum. This has a wallet.
I mean, a wallet. Just take the wallet out of there. Nobody uses it.
Stuff does. Like joint market sits on top of
Yeah.
a Bitcoin node, and the wallet is in the node. It's not in join market.
Okay.
Right. So like there are still things that use that, and they still use like Berkeley DB, right? They're like really old. So if you compile like a modern version of Bitcoin Core and Knots, where it's like, oh, just forget about Berkeley DB, and join market won't work. So like you need that legacy stuff, man. If they dump the wallet entirely from Core, it's kind of right in theory to move towards modularity, which is what they kind of want to do, right? Like there's been people pushing for filters to be like a thing that isn't, part of Core releases at all. So it's like if for what you want to do with your mempool, that's now a separate thing you can change on the fly, rather than like be a part of every release cycle with all this drama around it. I thought that was a great idea, but then that was Aiden, right, that proposed it, and then Greg Maxwell said it was distributed authoritarianism. And recently someone told me, like,
I don't understand how that's not like the best trade-off, because especially considering the fact that like if the overwhelming majority of node runners think that this is a good mempool policy to have, then like, okay, then that's what we want. That's what the stewards of the network are trying to do, is they're trying to actually be strict about the nature of what goes into the chain, which is exactly what Bitcoin does with everything that it does.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy because it's like the distributed authoritarianism is like, okay, so the lack of choice decided by like a few.
Well, I think like Dathan, I was talking to Dathan, who's the author of the BIP444, and he made the statement, Bitcoin is distributed authoritarianism. That's the point. It's the most strictly enforced possible rules by no central ruler you can possibly imagine. That doesn't mean you don't ever get to change the rules, but it's not anything but that. Like if you try and do something that breaks the rules in Bitcoin, you'll never be told no more resolutely within the Bitcoin ecosystem than you would be in any other system. That's where 21 million comes from. That's why it's genuinely reliable. And it's such an ideological mistake to paint that and characterize that as a bad thing. The fact that you can have a game where no one can rug you and change the rules every time you start doing well at it, which is what happens with fiat, right? They just move goalposts all the time. That's freedom, right? That's the freedom to print $2 trillion or however many $1 trillion during COVID. That's freedom, and it's authoritarian to say, no, you're not allowed. I find distributed authoritarianism is the world I want to live in. It's the world where everyone gets to set the rules and no one can break them, but they're as fair as they could be. That kind of blew my mind when he framed it that way.
Well, technically, like those words, that's just a complete contradiction in terms.
I was about to say it's all about the association of the words themselves, because authoritarianism is, when we like, if you actually just want to look at the definition, we're talking about like a centralized top-down set of rules. And like a distributed authoritarianism is literally an oxymoron. It's a wet, dry blanket. It just like they don't exist in the same universes. And I get what you're saying, and just the idea that like, I think you're using the term authoritarianism or authoritarian in the context of like,
we want a strict rule set. We want a strict protocol.
Like it's just there's no exception. Like it's a singular structure of rules that you can agree to or not play. And in that sense, like within the Bitcoin system, you don't just come in and just change and do whatever you want. Like the system tells you what is available as options. Like the structure of the network itself says you can either do this or you aren't playing the game with anybody. And the nodes are basically the ultimate arbiters as to what is accepted on the network, and then whether or not and then you have this, kind of consensus anchor on the fact that we're all working off the time chain. So it lends itself to being brutally difficult, even if everybody wants to change it. Still changing it is a remarkable pain in the ass. So I don't know. I think the whole nature of that discussion, or saying that like there's any, I just, the idea that any of this is censorship is just so silly. I mean, and I really wanted to get Callie on because I wanted to hear his take on this. We still haven't been able to reschedule. But he called it an exploit when they put a JPEG in the cashew mint. And it's like, well, okay, so like, what is it about a decentralized system that makes it not an exploit? And what about a centralized system makes it an exploit? And I've had this conversation with a few people, and I think one of them blocked me. I was just fucking trying to ask a goddamn question, people. God, pull your panties up. But he said, well, it's a decentralized system. It's much harder. You can't just like change stuff. It's like, well, that doesn't. That's like if you could make a whole bunch of cashew tokens out of thin air by exploiting it in the system, or you did it in Bitcoin, like it's still an exploit. You're just saying that it's like harder to change over here.
Have we covered this? Did this happen within the last month? Like, we should give the context for what happened.
Maybe we did talk about this last time.
I think we did talk about it last time.
Did we?
But yeah,
did we? Was it that long ago?
I don't know.
Shit, I don't know, man.
I've heard somebody talk about it. So
time doesn't make any sense over here.
I think there were two things. It wasn't just one. I mean, so Callie did two things, right? The first was he claimed that, this is all data is equal. That was the first claim, right? Cypherpunks treat all data as equal.
Did Callie actually say that? I didn't know if that was
he came up with a statement and was like, these tyrants are trying to control how other people use stuff. And trying to introspect data, or are afraid of some ones and zeros, but not other ones and zeros. And he said, as a quote, cypherpunks treat all data as equal. And this was like a really celebrated post he made.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
So obviously we were hitting him with that when cashew mint started being used. Someone made nutscriptions, which is like, deliberately just to
so stupid.
It was really funny, right? And it was
well, you said he actually laughed, right? Like he was actually kind of like, he's like, okay, you got me, or whatever.
No, because he was furious about it.
Oh, really?
He doxed what's his name, the guy that found it, Floppy Disk, right? Yeah, he doxed him, trashed him for like really like brutally, like this guy's disgusting, like, pathetic loser, like really went on one of those like Trump style rants, against him, and obviously doxed his name.
I think, Jeff, you're referring to his initial post about it, where he was commenting,
said he was giggling
about the irony of the fact that he's aggressively talking about like, can't stop spam or whatever, and shouldn't filter the spam, and now he's filtering the nutscriptions on right. Cashew. Nutscriptions is such a great word.
He was furious about it, but then also, I mean, he doxed Praveen there, so I was like, all right, well, I guess cypherpunks dox people as well. That's the thing now. And then he came up with some wishy-washy excuse about that, saying, his name was already known. And I'm like, look, man, no one has perfect OPSEC. He's clearly trying to hide it and break the link between the two. And you can't be lecturing people on what it is to be a cypherpunk and deliberately like screwing with people, doxing you. Trying to dox them. But then it happened again, right? So he doxed Dathan, who really is trying to remain anonymous because he's, making an anti-spam BIP, and a lot of people will lose a lot of money if their NFTs crash to zero. So Dayton was very carefully a NIM the entire time, and Callie doxed him as well. So I'm just like, at what point does your cypherpunk credibility finally evaporate here? Because I'm a bit tired of the Callie worship, to be quite honest with you. But other than that,
I think the original comment, like in question, the idea that like all ones and zeros are equal makes no sense in the context of this conversation or the system.
No, it makes no sense in the context of
You
Bitcoin at
literally
all.
would be unable to define an exploit or a bug in any sense. Like so many of these like conversations around this, they'll constantly give some sort of a platitude or something like that, that the second you apply it to an actual bug, it falls apart because like they're directly contradictory. Like what's the transaction in 2011 or something, 2010, I think, that created 1 billion extra Bitcoin with the overflow bug? That was valid. It paid a transaction fee. It got in. There was nothing wrong with it. Why are those ones and zeros different from all the other ones and zeros? Why is this a bug? Why is this an exploit? Like it all comes back. Like you can't like we can jerk off all day about like, I got a cool motto, but like at the end of the day, this is a system that actually has to be designed to do something. And you can't just hand wave all this shit away. Like, how do you define what a bug or an exploit is? That's the whole fucking conversation. That's the whole conversation. And if your platitude dismisses the capacity for a bug to even exist, then it's immediately not even in the realm of discussion. Like it could not be less intellectually relevant to anything. It's just chest beating.
I wrote a satirical tweet saying I made a perfect monetary protocol application. Here it is, print F, hello world. And that's it. You're not allowed to change it because that would be authoritarian, and you're not allowed to, the free market will just make it work. This was like just these sort of tropes that people throw out there without any regard for what's like realistic. Like they just like lean on these lazy ideologies and just go, everything's fine. And you've got a lot of that with libertarian ideology in the Bitcoin space too. It's like, you're scamming people. It's like, look, man, this is the free market. People are grown-ups making voluntary decisions alone. I'm like, yeah, that's just window dressing. You're just scamming people. I've read your marketing material. It's all, you're trying to give people a wrong impression. You're trying to mislead people. And you just start yelling about libertarianism and freedom whenever anyone points it out. I don't get how people can get away with that. The aspect of libertarianism that interests me is the self-governance of it. And if people refuse to do that, then they just invite rulers and, corrupt entities to govern them for them because everything collapses otherwise.
I'll tell you what I think it is that it's a failure to recognize that a structure of rules are necessary for a market to exist. Like that's where I think is the libertarian, and I'll say this because like this is how I used to think about it, is that the idea of the free market is just no rules and anybody can do whatever they want. Well, the reason a market actually forms is because rules emerge, like rules of behavior emerge. It's so much just like rules of the road, is that or it's just rules of a game, is that you can't actually play a game without rules. Like it's not authoritarian to have an out of bounds. It's not authoritarian to have a first down line. It is explicit to the fact that you are playing a game, that the rule exists. And only within that can you actually have the freedom to explore, be creative, or actually do things. In the sense of a market, you have to have property rights. You have to have strict ideas of like formal concepts of what a trade is, of what a voluntary trade is, and what one person who owns something is transferred to another person. Like all of the structure of those rules must exist for a free market to actually exist. And if you don't, everything that you do has the tragedy of the commons problem. Everything you do has these massive collective issues where you can't scale anything. It is explicitly in those rules. It's like being able to just be like, well, I can say whatever I want and the rules can mean whatever I want them to mean. It's like, well, no, it's a network. If the words don't mean the same in your head as they do in mine, we aren't communicating. Free market is the exact same way. If we don't have rules as to what the ownership and trade is, what money is, then we don't have a network, and there's literally just no society. If it's freedom to just have any word that we ever say mean anything at all, they just change it every single time the first sentence comes out of my mouth isn't the same as the second sentence, then it's just incomprehensible nonsense. It's just nothing but screaming noise. And the same is true for a market.
I agree. I think we said it before, it's freedom in any sense as it relates to humans requires some sort of boundaries, and people can't reconcile that. They act like if there's a boundary, how can there be freedom? I'm like, because you can't ever realistically have anything that looks like freedom without some sort of container to put it in and some sort of scope for what it is people are allowed to do. And if you say, well, let's make it scopeless, let's just have infinite freedom in all directions, then I'm like, well, then no one can do anything, because people come to you speaking gobbledygook, using protocols you don't understand. Like, it can even be like unwritten stuff. Like, everyone here in this market speaks English, and you walked in here speaking a language no one else speaks, and you are unable to conduct a trade as a result of that. There was an expectation on you to speak the same language as everyone else. It wasn't even stated formally, but is that an imposition on your freedom? It's not
distributed authoritarianism.
Right. But they will turn it around on you and be like, right, everyone has to learn all languages now and support all that. Otherwise, they're not welcome in this market. And otherwise, you're imposing on other people's freedom. And then you're saying, well, no, because now you're placing a requirement on me to support a protocol at my own expense that wasn't necessary before. So this is when freedom becomes abused as a concept. I don't know if I'm making the point well, but
basically, I think you could sum it up very easily, is that if there is freedom in every single scope and at every single layer, then you can't have liberty. Like, you can't, like if it's just a whatever goes in any way, and you always have to accept it. There's genuine no personal preference, and there's no like protocol or standardization choice on the part of any individual. You'll never have any networks. You'll never have any standard that survives for any length of time. And you literally can't actually have a free society with liberty, in the sense that liberty is in any meaningful context whatsoever.
Well, the rules of the road are a good example, right? Because you can't have people competing to decide whether you're going to drive on the right-hand side of the road or the left-hand side. Then you have people driving at each other, right? Like, you can't have people competing whether green means go and red means, or red means go. Like, you can't have half the people doing one thing and half the people doing another thing. And so, you were saying that, like, they flip things around. It just brought into my head, like, exactly like the whole COVID thing, right? Was like, well, you're a threat to my health if you go out. Like, if you're unvaccinated or you don't wear a mask, you shouldn't be able to go out. It's like, no, asshole. Like, if you go out into public, you're running there's a certain amount of risk with being around other people. Like, if you want to wear a bunny suit, you can do that. Otherwise, you stay home and you bear the cost of your own damn fear. Like, if you want to change something, it's you who should bear the cost of trying to change it. Like, so it's with a protocol like Bitcoin, none of the people that want to run filters are demanding anybody else do anything. It's just saying, I'm going to run this filter on my goddamn node. Like, and these people are freaking out about it. They want to take away the ability to do that. You should be able to relay whatever kind of transaction you want, or not relay whatever kind of transaction you want. And, the protocol, like, once something gets into a block, then you don't have much of a choice. But if you want to keep the whole history in chain, so, okay, fine. But until then, it's a voluntary action.
Another point I'll make is there are still so many people out there that think core nodes just relay and accept everything that's consensus valid into their mempools, and NOT nodes don't. They cherry pick. This is just not how nodes work, and people just still don't understand this. core nodes filter to, Libra relay nodes filter to, because you have to. There's no proof of work component in spamming someone's mempool with consensus valid transactions. If someone makes 1 billion transactions that spends 0 in transaction fees, you'll reject all of it, because otherwise they'll just fill up your node with absolute garbage that would never make it into the chain anyway, because no one would mind that. And this is just how nodes have to work. You can't be spammed with blocks. So the consensus rules can be really loose, because miners can't just find block after block after block. There's all that proof of work requirement. But consensus valid transactions with no proof of work element, they can just be, spun up by the billion and thrown and thrown and thrown and thrown at you. And every single node has to have some reasonable way of saying, well, I'm not going to just accept everything, so I need to place some sort of standards on what there are. And everyone does that. But the ideological component of this whole debate doesn't understand that. They still think that core is treating everything as equal. All transactions that are consensus valid, I will accept and relay. And I'm like, you're not doing that, because it's literally impossible. And once you get past that ideological blocker, it becomes a question of, well, all right, policies are just how a node works. So what should they be?
Yeah.
And the minute you're in that section, it's like, well, why should they include 100 kilobyte op returns?
You cannot just accept any and everything that is within the consensus rules as a node and have a node that is even slightly secure or sustainable.
It's just part of how nodes have got to work on the network.
Yeah.
But people don't get this. They're still out there saying, I run core, therefore I relay everything. And I'm like, you don't know how your node works. And you haven't thought for 5 minutes about how you would design such a thing.
But there are people that are
crazy.
smart enough to know that are saying otherwise, which still makes me think there's like some sort of there's some sort of they're invested in something there's some sort of other component driving them. I can't it's like,
I don't know, it just feels like normal heel digging to me.
Oh, there was a big old post where this guy that wants to merge opcat was like, we have to merge opcat because of quantum computers. So I know we're always laughing at quantum computers, but this guy, he initially was trying to do something else, right? He was trying to get opcat for some other reason that didn't work out. Now he's trying to say we need it because of quantum computers. And I just remember, if someone's talking about quantum computers, they're probably trying to scam you, like always.
Well, we were going to bomb Venezuela because of, drug cartels. And now we're going to do it because of China and Russia.
Quantum
and
computers.
Iran or something. Yeah, like it doesn't make any sense to say.
Quantum did it.
Did y'all see? Okay, did I see this right? That J.P. Morgan, what's the guy, the Epstein's banker,
Diamond?
was like saying, yeah, he was like
Jamie Dimon.
attacking MicroStrategy and saying that it should be delisted and something as some sort of Bitcoin fund. And then like a day later, he like shows that he's offering some sort of Bitcoin bond. Like Jamie Dimon has got some sort of Bitcoin bond now, JP Morgan.
They're very incoherent, aren't they?
It's very it's almost like he's acting like he's the sort of person that would be Epstein's banker. It's weird.
Or just, if you run a bank and it's successful, Epstein's going to be one of your clients. I'm not trying to devil's advocate too strong, but if I run a big bank and this the world's most connected and protected man ever wants to make an account with me, I assume I have to say yes or watch various family members get murdered and have their organs trafficked. I don't really know what the solution is for that. People are uncovering more and more stuff about. I've gone down a few conspiracy theory rabbit holes this last month or so, and it just horrifies me, the stuff that's out there. I think my general take is the AI-based surveillance state is now a given, and they're like, all right, we'll get rid of all the old control mechanisms, so we'll just let everyone hear about all that stuff, not just MK Ultra, but Monarch and all the psyop, like controlled celebrities and all that. Like all this stuff just come out, like, and people are like, wait a minute, Israel have been doing what? And it's like and it's like, yeah, we don't really care if people find out about that anymore. We're just going to be brazen with it. The whole Candace Owens assassination plot, the Charlie Kirk assassination, like it just feels sloppy now. They're just like, yeah, we don't really care if you can see exactly what it is we're doing anymore. Like,
well, this is kind of fourth turning vibes at the same time. Like, because like what happens is that they keep it, essentially the powers that be, this is a historical trend that you can kind of map out, is during the second and third turnings, is you have this face where, like, because things are running relatively smoothly and you're in the up track of this process, is that it's easy. It's about like just like looking like everything's fine, and the cost of basically undermining or corrupting the system, and the cultural cost and the rot isn't great enough that it actually hinders the overall operation. So it's basically hidden under the surface. But when the culture rot and the corruption of the whole architecture starts to get, like, the debt just gets to the point that it's insurmountable, well, then everybody gets way more brazen, because now it's a genuine fight for power. Like, because there are so many different actors in it that they literally just have to say, like, I'm going to be I'm going to be a worse person than you. And so I'm going to win this. And so everybody it becomes less and less about what the public thinks in the context of, like, oh, do they know that we did bad things or whatever? And it's more about, like, how much evil can we get away with? And the public will just dismiss out of just the sheer need to be blind, to just like stick your head in the sand. How much can we get away with? And what's the risk to your personal life if you stand up against that?
Well, so Ayn Rand says that, the murderer wins over the pickpocket. So, so you just have this like competition.
The corruption of power just scales,
right?
Like scales to the hierarchy dominance. The dominance hierarchy is that the one who's willing to have the biggest stick and use it most viciously will be the one that wins until there's no structure to maintain power over anymore.
Yeah, which still baffles me, because, like, supposing Ron Paul libertarianism, like, became the dominant ideology in America, and our political system reduced itself to the size where we felt like we were embracing the libertarian ideals. What do you do then about, like, some giant foreign superpower like China walking in and saying, this is ours now and we don't care about your principles? Like, Ayn Rand did support the right of the state or the obligation of there being a state, just to prevent things like that, if I understand correctly. And I've never managed to figure that out.
I think that's specifically why cultural defenses are so critical. Because you only maintain that with an insanely strong and exclusive culture, is that basically you're not allowed in unless you support, Ron Paul libertarianism, essentially. It's just the exact same thing as, like, you put a fence around your fucking yard and you just don't let anybody in unless you like and trust that person.
And that's an extension of self-defense.
It's just an extension of self-defense. It's basic property rights. And that's one of those things that libertarians don't get, is that, oh, we'll just open and anybody can come in. It's like, well, no, if you don't have the cultural values and the concept of property rights, you will just let everyone in until you have nothing, and until you're literally just overrun with an anti-libertarian mental framing or cultural values, and then you'll lose it all, because you literally just said that freedom is the fact that no culture is any different, but we want to have a whole culture of liberty. Like, you can't, like, those can't exist in the same world. Like, the culture of liberty is actually only maintained by a culture of liberty. So if you just think that anybody can come in and cultures and ideologies or whatever are just like, whatever, just pick one out of a box. You can have whichever ideology you want. No, that's not how society works. It's that comes first, and then society actually is sustainable or not.
Yeah, I mean, that was Hoppe's, conclusion, was that you had to get rid of the communists, right? Yeah, I don't know. I can still go back and forth. I can't, because like the situation we're in right now is so bad. And the only, like, how do you have a decentralized way to manage who comes into the country? Like, it seems like most of the problem would be solved if the government just couldn't steal from everybody to fund bringing people in. Because a huge portion of the problem is that, like, Somalis and all these crazy, like people that wouldn't be able to afford the plane ticket here are coming here anyway. Now, I don't know how much, like, could some other country pay to import a bunch of people into a free area? Like, as an attack, I guess you could do that. Like, Florida flew, like, people to Martha's Vineyard, right? Like, so like,
that story killed me.
That was like Calla with the spam in the in the cashew mints, because it was straight ideological about face. It was like,
it's so
in
beautiful.
this house we believe all lives, like all people are equal, and like and then it immediately turned into no trespassing, and like, we will call the police if you show up in our driveway. Like, it was just perfect. Like, they had to completely, because no one pushing those kinds of values ever has to deal with the fallout from it. Ever.
Like, it is definitely the case that the overwhelming majority of the problem is the government actually using U.S. tax dollars to import and support people. And I mean, to the point that, like, I had someone ask me to invest in a hotel that was going to have utilities subsidized and a large percentage of the rooms rented by the government, because they were going to keep, people there. So like, this was like this was a thing that was happening in a lot of places. And, particularly in Charlotte, North Carolina, which there's been a lot of, like, discussion about, and in places where they want to they want to redraw voting districts and stuff like that. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel like ICE is a horrible, horrible failure. Like, they're arresting people that are actually decent, hardworking people, because the incentives, like, it's obvious how bad the incentives are, right? Okay, we're going to create a police force that doesn't have to respect any of the normal arrest protocols, and we're just going to give them a quota for people they have to get rid of. And, well, they don't want to go into, like, gang territories and, like, arrest gang members. They want to do the thing that's easiest for them and safest for them. So they go to Home Depot and arrest the guy that's got a job and a kid and, drives a Volvo or whatever. Like, they don't want to arrest the people that are actually the problem.
They don't want to risk their lives. They want easy arrests.
Right. And so it seemed like this is why cops don't do anything about riots. Cops don't go into the worst, but, like, this is why, like, places like Chicago and Detroit have parts of town that are completely run by gangs, is because the cops don't want to go there. Like, they don't want a battle. And so this is, like, just straight up obvious human nature, right? It makes sense that we got here because the only thing you can't cut government spending politically. The only thing that's easy to do politically is to create another government program and spend more. So they created another police force, and it did all the wrong things. But the only real solution was to cut the spending that was funding the immigration in the first place and supporting the immigrants when they're here. So, I don't know that you can go backwards.
I was about to say, it's like you can't stop this train. Like, I don't know how you do it until it's broken.
I think, removing benefits and incentives.
Javier Milei is probably the best example in recent times.
Or Bukele or something like that.
Able to cut significant amounts of government expenditure. Like they did, like, one of the biggest things was, they fired enormous amount of people in their central bank. They fired a ton of just general government employees, and they removed a staggering amount of subsidies and restrictions on housing. And then the price of housing fell by like 70% over the period of like 2 or 3 years or something. But their currency was collapsing. Like their currency was basically in hyperinflation.
Right. If dollarization wasn't part of what he was already doing, or like if he didn't have outside support, is what I'm saying.
That's a good point.
I think that the deep state or whatever, whatever you want to call it, Israel, like CIA, whatever.
I think that the idea of the deep state is just a recognition that the state lies about their motives. Like the political face lies about its motives, which is so like horribly, like childishly, like 5-year-olds should understand this logic, that the political face of the government is just the PR on top of a literal organized mafia.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is. It's just, how do we sell this shit to the people so that we can have more power and more control and more money? So the deep state, I think, is axiomatically necessary. Like of course it exists because the political face is just PR.
Yeah. What's the politician's name that in South Carolina that McConnell, Mitch McConnell? Is that what it is? Was it McConnell?
I don't know. What everybody talking about? They said something.
He's the one that like Trump's been siding with him for over Massey and everybody else. He was like he was mad because he was being spied on.
Oh yeah. Mr. Spy on All Americans was mad because he got his cell phone records confiscated. Oh my God, I retweeted that. I was so happy.
I hate these people so much, dude.
But see, this is the perfect example of like, I mean, again, whatever you want to call it, the deep state it makes perfect sense that if you grant some bureaucrat the ability to spy on Americans, the first people they're going to spy on is politicians, because those are the people that are the power brokers. I mean, to whatever degree politicians have power, those are the people you want to control. So the politicians, the other bureaucrats, the people that you want power over are going to be the people that are spied on. And this was what he was. This is even in like Neil Stephenson's one of his books or something. Is that the people that work for the government are like the most brainwashed and the most spied on and the most like they're like the most controlled people, and they don't like they have no idea like what life is outside of their like spied on and controlled world. Because those are the only people. Like the rest of the people don't really matter. They don't have any political power at all. And so if the goal is to manipulate, people who have power, then you spy on, those people.
For sure. If you got anywhere in politics, it's because someone had something on you and let you be there, and they are keeping you on a very short leash. Yeah. And that's just the truth of it. There's no way. I first had that theory in 2011. It was really crudely put, every single person in government office is a pedophile. And that's the reason they're put there. They're put there compromised from the beginning so that they can never be allowed outside of a certain box of acceptable behavior. So they can argue left and right about absolute nonsense, but they'll be bipartisan on anything of actual substance. So like,
I can't remember who it was, but I saw it again recently. And the video's from like maybe 20 years ago or something, like late 90s, early 2000s or something. But it's a guy who I think used to work in the CIA. And he was talking about like, listen, like how this works is not even that complicated. Like just think about it. You're a young politician, you have a nice family, you're married and whatever. And you just get in, you get you get in an office in your local area, and then you work your way up, and now you're kind of in an important position. Your legislature, and maybe you get to the Senate or the House of Representatives, and then suddenly you're invited places. You have a little bit of influence, and then you're invited overseas to a big conference or important thing that you're very excited about. You're important. You're part of the club now, and when you go there, everybody's drinking and having a great time, and this very attractive young woman comes up to you, and y'all spend an hour or so together, and then she invites you up to the room, and you think, oh, I'm in a totally different country. Nobody's going to know about this. I'm drunk. My inhibitions are lower. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, it comes up that now it's time to vote on something. And somebody comes up and is like, I heard that you were with this young woman in Burma or whatever at a conference or whatever. I would just really hate it if that got out and ruined your marriage. He goes, oh God, no, it's not. It wasn't like that at all. And he's like, listen, people interpret these things very, very poorly, and it just doesn't look good. And I would just hate to see your career be cut short, or your marriage and your family be destroyed for this. But I would really, really love it if we had your vote. He says, and he's like, that's just how it works. That's just how it works. That's how it's always worked. And if they can get better leverage, they'll get better leverage. But the whole game is the fact that all people are very easily corrupted, and the more power they have, the more someone else is going to make sure you get corrupted, because that's how they control you. So that was my job. That was our job.
And they'll give you money if you go their way.
You'll get a stick. You'll get a stick in one direction, and you'll get a reward in the other. Life will be very easy as long as you give us the vote.
So it's why you never want to go anywhere near any of this stuff, because you're just going to get bullied, or you're going to end up JFK'd.
Yeah. Well, and you never want to get called
bullied, JFK'd, or just speaking the truth by yourself and nobody listening for 30 years. Hat tip, Ron Paul.
Yeah.
You never want to get caught blowing Bill Clinton on camera.
Yeah.
That was hilarious, eh? And just like, it should have all died for everyone. The minute they said the Epstein files aren't real, it's a Democrat hoax. Everyone should have been like, I'm done. I am absolutely a billion% done. I'm never, ever, ever allowing myself to ever get excited. Like, how many people did you know that were stoked that Trump won just now?
I mean, I was.
Like, right. And do you not have to, do you have a sticker on your fridge, the Fell for It Again award? Like, do you have this? Or?
I deserve it. I mean, like,
it's
I really
big.
like
Such a big sticker.
Hate it. Like, I truly, like, the last time I voted was when Ron Paul was running, and I intended for that to be the last time I would ever vote. And legit, like,
I feel that pain.
Kamala Harris was so bad that I just thought, okay, no, this time's different. And here's RFK and all these other people, and, maybe, and, Ross Ulbricht got out of jail. So I guess, he just tweeted or posted that this is his first Thanksgiving, free in however many years, over a decade. So I don't hate that, but otherwise, like, it just feel like, God, how stupid could I have been? And now watching people, like, I hope nobody's really getting excited over Trump's, like, dangling the idea that, I'm going to get rid of your income tax. No, he's not. Shut the fuck up. Like, it's not even sort of going to happen. He's just trying to cover up for something else bad he's about to do, which is, what was it? I actually saw something. He was going to,
probably send Israel or Ukraine a bunch of money or bombs or something.
Nah, there was, crap. I can't remember what it is now. Hold on. I don't know. It doesn't matter, but
well, let's hit some news items, because we've actually covered a couple things that Bitcoin. I mean, this is all Bitcoin relevant, because Bitcoin is why we're here.
Is it
F the system? So I'm curious. I don't know what y'all know about Lava, but I've briefly looked into them because they were apparently all the rage about, like, a DLC system. So Bitcoin-backed loans software company Lava shifts from DLC self-custody to a custodial cold storage after $200 million raise. So following the backlash, the CEO admitted that shifting their security model away from DLCs, fundamental change was apparently not communicated to users. But Lava can unilaterally move the collateral, implying either private keys were not private, or the Oracle could publish false data. And let me go ahead and hit the last two, because there's only actually a couple here. Then just Square launches Bitcoin payments for 4 million U.S. merchants. which I've had a hard time. Nobody wants to go to their dashboard and set it up. I keep going to like cafes and stuff, and like I don't want to like I want to get out and like take like 30 minutes to be like, listen, guys, here, let's actually do this, and especially if they're busy. But I keep telling people, and they're like, oh, really? And I'm like, yeah, you just turn it on your dashboard. There's no fees.
Well, Steve, did you start doing this
Steve's
at your
got it.
bar?
Yeah, I got it. But the point he just made, especially if they're busy, is the critical point that applies not to just setting it up, but to doing every transaction. I mean, you guys have all been in Chipotle when you have somebody that's like really pissing you off.
I'd like to pay with a check.
Asking questions and shit. Like the entire line just gets furious at your bar. And like, it's not about, I mean, am I going to take Bitcoin and piss off 10 customers to do that? Like, no, it's about the speed of checkout.
I will say I bought 2 drinks at the bar. And aside from the fact that I think the first time the bartender was, she was like, wait a second, how do you do this again?
That was
So
our
like
first one. Yeah.
Took a second. But then I got her to do again, like just literally like 10 minutes later or whatever. And it was really fast. I mean, I used Phoenix and it worked.
Yeah.
So I did it twice and it wasn't a problem then.
Overall, it's been pretty good, like with just expected hiccups, like I make my bartenders check me out in Bitcoin every night to train the hell out of them.
That's good.
So every night I go to my bar and I buy a beer for myself and I send Bitcoin to myself and I make them check out with Bitcoin. But it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of practice. It's a lot of getting good at it. This isn't your normal setup. You've got extra stuff going on. How do you incorporate the tips on the Bitcoin checkout back into the tips of your main system? How do you get all of that integrated with your accounting? Like there's extra steps. It's harder. It's
have they figured out tips? Do
work.
they have like an easy thing for tips? Because I hadn't seen that.
So right now, our setup system is I can charge things in my existing point of sale system to a house account. So I just made a house account called Bitcoin, and then they ring everything up in the house account. Then they get the Bitcoin checkout, and then they put the tips back in. The tips are automatically in the Bitcoin transaction, right? Like that can't be a separate transaction, which kind of sucks because that makes it a lot harder for the tips to go directly to the employees. It would be nice if Cash App or any system somehow made 2
Integrated
transactions.
prisms.
Yeah, something like that, prisms or something like that.
Well, I was about to say if they made it so that the bartender themselves could do it, like they could make it prisms, but they don't even technically need prisms because they could just forward it. They could just be like, this is obviously the invoice for the thing, and then this is the extra amount. And it could just be purely custodial because Square is custodial on the Bitcoin side when you're being received. They just need to allow an allocation to go to somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, so like if we were fully Square, we're not fully Square because Square does not have the best point of sale system for a bar. They're made for a coffee shop. They're not made for a bar. They don't have all of the tab pre-authorization, drink modifications, like a million different options for receipts and stuff like that. They're just, I'm trying to think of, they're like I'm trying to think of an example of like a product where there's like a simple product and then there's like a super complicated. It's kind of like this.
It's flea market. It's the flea market point of sale, right?
Exactly. It's not for high end bars where speed is everything, and just modification, customization. It's like a Bitcoin mining pool, like running a Bitcoin node out of the box. No, they're going to create their custom Bitcoin node with all these modifications, like specifically for their environment if they're very serious about it. Like that's how
it's iMovie versus Final Cut, right?
Where is your bar?
Well, not Final Cut anymore. I guess it'd be like After
It's in Raleigh.
Or whatever.
In where?
DaVinci.
Raleigh.
I don't know what that is.
But anyway,
Raleigh?
but it's pretty good, and Square's getting better at the bar environment. And like if you are fully with Square already, that makes things a lot easier in some ways because you can do all of the tips and everything are just automatically recorded. You don't have to transfer it from one system to another. So yeah, if you're using Square already, like I think it's a no-brainer for businesses. I mean, you've got to train your employees, and you're probably not going to want to do it when you have 10 people in line and you've got a employee checking out somebody for the first time. You don't want to do it then, but like other than that, yeah.
I'll see if the coffee shop that I went to today and then the day before Thanksgiving, I keep telling them, and they're like, "Oh, well." The first girl just looked like confused. She was like, "Oh, okay." But the girl I spoke to today actually seemed like when I said Bitcoin, she was aware that Bitcoin was a thing and had that like indication. They're like, "Oh, okay, this is like a thing that we can do now. That's cool." I'll talk to the owner or whatever about it. It probably won't be available tomorrow, but I'm going to try again.
Yeah. I have one bartender that is like she's not like a Bitcoiner, but she's like just very suspicious of the government. And so I'm just like, look, like non-government
That's all
money,
you need.
We're doing this.
You're halfway there.
I mean, if you can find some way to get your your employees excited about it in some way, other than just like, I just made your life twice as hard, and you're not getting any more money for it. Like, you got to find some way to like make your employees happy about it.
You could make it so that like the fact that the credit card fee isn't there anymore, you can just like sum up all the money you saved. Like, so all the Bitcoin purchase, say you sold 10 grand worth of stuff in the last week via Bitcoin, you could be like, well, I would have lost $90 from transaction fees, like with the credit card. So that's all just extra tips split amongst everyone in the bar. You could do that, and then they might feel some sort of.
That's pretty dope. Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah. I mean, and also not for my bar, because in my bar, I send them home with cash every day from their credit card tips. That's just a system that has a bunch of pros and cons. Some bars send their employees paychecks, to their direct deposit to their bank account. That is if their government isn't watching their bank account and taking money out for whatever reason. But so some bars do that, and then some bars just convert the credit card tips and report it, and they have to pay taxes on it, but they get home with cash at the end of the night. Those bars, basically the employer is paying the credit card fee for them. So I'm paying the credit card fee for their tips right now. But
Gotcha.
If you're not doing that, if you're sending your employees tips via direct deposit to their checking account, then yeah, you can be like, hey, look, if you get your tips on Bitcoin, you don't have to pay that fee maybe, or something like that. But yeah, no, that's a good idea. Just splitting what's saved via credit card fees to the employees. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I like it.
You don't actually have to sell your Bitcoin to access its value. You can actually borrow against it very easily without selling it. But when you do this, you need to be careful. You need to do this with a company that is trusted, one that has survived a bear market, and one that will literally show you that they have the coins, that they have proof of reserves or some mechanism where you can look at your balance and know that it is safe. This is why I've been a huge fan and a customer of Ledden for a few years now. So one of the Bitcoin-backed loans that I got a few years ago to finish renovations and the basement and studio in my house, I would have paid 3 times as much Bitcoin had I just sold it, as it now takes me to just pay off the loan. And that's if I sell the Bitcoin to pay it off, which I think I'm going to be able to get equity out of the house and pay off the loan and get all of my Bitcoin back. This especially makes sense if you're making an investment. If you're doing something that is going to pay you income in the future, or if you're investing in Bitcoin mining, it's a whole lot easier to beat the interest rate if you loan against the Bitcoin and keep the Bitcoin. Ledden also makes this like crazy easy. Like if you went to do this right now, you could probably get the money by tomorrow. They do proof of reserves twice a year, and I check. It's a very easy process. And you don't have to do monthly payments if you don't want to. You can just accrue the interest and pay off in chunks whenever it makes sense. And best of all, they just recently got rid of all the noise. They had some other features. They had Ethereum loans. They're like, nope, chop it. They had a yield product. Nope, chop it. They had loans where you could get a lower interest rate and they didn't have it on their books. They lent it out. Nope, chop that. Now it's just custodied, fully backed Bitcoin loans. Doesn't work for every single situation or every person, but there are some times where this is an incredibly valuable tool to have. Don't overextend. Remember, Bitcoin is volatile and read the details. But if you need access to your Bitcoin's value and you just don't want to sell, Ledin is a brilliant and simple tool for doing exactly that. And I've been a happy customer for a couple of years now. You can check out the links right down in the show notes. It's LEDN, ledin.io. Now, question. Did y'all know anything about this lava thing? Because I did hear briefly, kind of in passing, like previously, that there was going to be some new system with DLCs. And I saw a bunch of people bitching about it on Twitter. And I believe it was the CEO or somebody who worked for him was coming in and being like, listen, we just ran into too many problems with DLCs and we couldn't get it to work. And that one, I didn't quite, there was never a full explanation unless, I didn't dig like hard into it, but that just seems a little like, to me.
Did I hear you? I've never heard of this, but did I hear you right in your explanation that they switched from self-custody to them having the private keys?
Basically, so they were trying to do DLC. This is a Bitcoin-backed loan company. So it's like Ledin or Unchained or, whatever. Yeah. And they were trying to come up with a new system that rather than custodial or multi-sig, they were going to do a DLC system, which was some self-custodial setup that you could do. And maybe it's got to do with how you can actually execute it, because you can kind of hide other paths and stuff in a Bitcoin transaction where somebody else wouldn't be able to see it. And maybe that's part of it. Is that okay, well, how do we make it so that users I'm making something up right now. I don't really know what the supposed problem they ran into was, but they were supposed to have something that was super secure and essentially self-custodial in some context, but still have a provable kind of, reserved Bitcoin-backed loan system. And they offer 5% interest, at least right now, but they never did the DLC thing. They raised $200 million with a bunch of excitement about their new system and stuff. And they ended up just kind of dropping it for they just hold the collateral, which, a bunch of companies do. And they're offering what sounds like an impossible interest rate. I kind of feel like as actual fiat interest rates get down, that might be possible at some point, but I don't know where the hell they're getting the liquidity to manage 5% Bitcoin-backed loans. And I'm not about to trust a company that hasn't been around the block and is saying, I've got a new setup and I've got a really great deal. So just really questionable on the front for me, especially if the whole DLC thing got dropped altogether. Yeah. But I don't know, just a questionable situation in my opinion.
I didn't hear about that, but I think there's something we need to do as a community to change classifications of Bitcoin-backed loans. There should just be two categories: address viewable, address not viewable, because there's all of these gray area, new creative solutions that are some kind of hybrid, some kind of blend between what Unchained has traditionally done and the worst, whatever, the worst, scammiest, take your Bitcoin, don't tell you where it is thing.
FTX.
Some people would be like, yeah, your Bitcoin is fully stored in custody with institutional grade, multi-sig, we're not touching it, but they won't show you the address. There's no difference between that and some company that says you're not gonna, we're not going to do whatever we want with your Bitcoin. There's no difference in those two things. You as the customer can either see the address where the thing is stored, and actually Unchained is great that they let you hold one one key
One
of
of the
a
keys.
2 of 3
Mhm.
multi-sig. That's great, but that doesn't really matter either. It's just like, because I can't do anything with my one key to my thing.
Well, you can stop them, right? But they have 2 of 3 themselves.
There's a third party escrow person.
Isn't that
like,
just them though?
it's probably just, that's why I'm saying that doesn't matter. But what does matter is that because I can download that configuration file for the multi-sig, I can view the address that the Bitcoin is stored at. That's all that matters. There's just 2 categories of Bitcoin backed loans: address viewable, address not viewable. None of the other shit matters,
Well, why doesn't you having a private key matter?
because I can't do anything with that. I can't move it with a private key anyway. I mean, it's kind of nice.
It's really just kind of a shortcut to address viewable, though. It's like how do you make an explicit address viewable without a multi-sig that the user is part of?
Like, send me the multi-sig configuration file. I need the multi-sig configuration file. That's all I need. I need to be able to see what keys are here and what is the address that the coins are being stored at, and I can monitor that every day. That's the only difference in loans. You either have that or you don't. So I think, but the companies themselves are not gonna make this classification. Like, we have to start classifying loans that way, I think.
Where on that category? Because like, I don't know how you would do the classification without the address viewable without having it explicitly tied to somebody's key in like a multi-sig. Whereas something like proof of reserves is an attestation to an on-chain balance, but it's usually an aggregated balance. So it's like, okay, here's an address with 237 coins in it, and then there's a hash in it, and then you have a Merkle leaf inside of that hash that you go paste, and then it's explicit that like inside of that there's your 1 Bitcoin, right? Like your 1 Bitcoin for your loan is in this 237 Bitcoin address or whatever.
Yeah, I guess I glossed over it. So when you do a Bitcoin backed loan, you, the individual, are putting an on-chain transaction to the multi-sig that holds your Bitcoin, right?
So it's a direct to thing. So there's not like the obfuscation for an address viewable thing.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess there is a slight difference in there. Like, no, a company doing that can't make one multi-sig for everybody's coins. They have to make a different multi-sig for every customer. Yes. Yeah. That'd be crazy if they did that.
I mean, I've been trying to dig into does anyone want to give me like an overarching summary of the state of the art Taproot multi-sig?
In what way? What do you mean an overview?
Like, everyone's got all these halfway solutions that are kind of there, that are like almost good, but no one's like there yet. If I
And
understand
for a
correctly.
Bitcoin backed loan, I don't know how it gets better than like a simple multi-sig. Like 2 keys, an arbiter, the company that you're working with, and you with a 2 of 3. I don't really know how you get a whole lot better. Like that's kind of like, that's like the gold standard or the Bitcoin standard. And then everything else is just like variations or gray areas. Like probably the absolute top of the line for a direct custodial would just be proof of reserves, so that you know that your Bitcoin aren't being rehypothecated. But that's still in a trusted setup because you don't have a key. And I separate that from custodial versus a multi-sig. But other than that, I don't know of anything that's like quote unquote better than just a simple 2 or 3 multi-sig.
So real quick with the lava thing, you were saying that they didn't have any sort of DLC thing implemented, and they had just been raising money. They were like moving in that direction.
They had been trying to do that this entire time and raised money, I believe, on basically that promise. And then
Were they already issuing
ended up
loans?
not being able to pull it off. I as I understand it, to give them the benefit of the doubt, is that the reason they didn't is because they could not make it secure. Is there was always some sort of edge case where somebody could lose their coins or somebody could back out of the loan, unilaterally. Like there's just some degree of control that they couldn't have, which limited their security, which means that they couldn't guarantee the loans to the lender versus the borrower. That is my rough understanding.
So it was not the case that they had already done a bunch of DLCs and then just moved all the money when they supposedly couldn't.
They were
do that.
trying to
Okay,
make the
all
DLC
right.
system work in testing, and they could never get it to pan out with the guarantees that in theory it kind of sounded like, oh yeah, we could definitely do it with DLCs and have it secure and trust the lender could be secured and the borrower could be secured, and essentially something supposedly better with an independent source of truth that solved or made it one step better than the 2 of 3 multi-sig. And apparently that just never happened. Or
just for the price aspect, like just the DLC is just there for like when you're actually liquidated. That's the only thing the DLC would.
Yes, the DLC is there for who does the lender or the borrower get this money? Like who's the attestation as to the reality of how this unfolded? How does this get margin called, basically?
What does DLC stand for?
Discrete log contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have now given you all of my knowledge on that topic.
It's kind of like we trust Jeff to speak the truth, and Mechanic and I have a multi-sig that says if the price goes down to 80,000, guy gets it. If the price goes up to 100,000, Mechanic gets it, and then Jeff is the one saying that the price is 82,000. The price is 85,000. That's
So,
price,
right, yeah.
So I'm the Oracle, and okay, I get it. All right.
But the thing is that you don't have to have any clue. We can lock our contract to the price based on what you say it is, but you don't even know that our contract exists. Right.
Yeah.
So like just the simple fact that you have broadcasted out to the world means that our contract can depend on your statement in that way. But you're not an arbiter.
UTXOracle solves this problem, but only if everyone agrees to run the same UTXOracle code. So it's kind of like in your contract, you're also like running UTXOracle together. And so and you prove that you're all running the exact same code, and then you'll all get the exact same price.
You could make it deterministic, right? Does UTXOracle use mempools, or does it just use the blockchain?
So there's kind of two different products. So UTXOracle chain, UTXOracle block is sort of a different project than UTXOracle mempool. UTXOracle chain is like a fully open sourced everything. Everybody gets the exact same price. Like there's no discrepancy. It's all consensus. Like it's like perfect in a way. UTXOracle mempool is messy. It's beta. I haven't open sourced everything, and everyone has a different mempool. So like UTXOracle mempool is going to have slightly different prices. I mean, they're going to be pretty much the same, and it's going to be kind of interesting what the difference is, but it's not a consensus price. And so those two products are kind of two different ones. Like I'm probably going to make an API for UTXOracle mempool. I'm not going to make an API for UTXOracle chain because that's the whole point. But because everybody's mempool is different, I'm probably going to make an API just for UTXOracle mempools, just so you can see what's in my mempool, I guess. Does that answer what you were asking?
For sure, yeah. And I think, I don't know, what I would be curious, like what mempool policies would give you the most reliable.
I know, right? Well, I know that for sure. I've been doing this for 5 years now. So the thing that gives you the most accurate prices is the following set of filters. Limit the number of inputs to 5 inputs or less. Make the number of outputs exactly 2. Like you'd think that's overly restrictive. It's not. One output is not going to be a price point. More than 2 outputs is not going to be a price point, because these aren't payments. These aren't simple payments with change addresses, and that's what you want. So limit inputs, outputs exactly 2, no witness data above 500 bytes, no op returns, no TX IDs that are RBF, and no TX IDs that have been spent in the last 6 blocks. So these are for people making 1 transaction per day, peer-to-peer. Like that is the highest signal to noise ratio for finding the price.
And those are the most authentic. Bitcoin
Yes.
is a medium of exchange.
Exactly.
Tools, right?
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's almost like I'm combining the movement for Bitcoin payments, directly peer to peer with the Oracle. It's kind of beautiful how these two things are combining. I'm finding like the ideal transactions for the Oracle are like the ideal intended transactions of Bitcoin, like to begin with. And it doesn't even have to be around USD, because as I'm finding, like I can pretty much tell you the value of Bitcoin purchasing power, USD price, kind of just based on the median amount of what people send.
Bitcoin sent.
Amazing.
It's crazy how simple the heuristic is. It's like,
It's
for
crazy.
all the stuff
Yeah.
we talk about of like, oh, there's going to be all these crazy transactions. There's going to be all these different types. It's like, well, yes, since the beginning, one input, two output, like,
Mhm.
direct transaction, drop all this all the other crap, and it still just works. It's the same. It's been the same.
Yeah.
It still just is. Yeah. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm super excited about it. I got so much like energy to work on it right now. It's great. I don't want to think about my bar right now. Like,
Man, I installed it
Unfortunately.
on StartOS, and it needs a configuration. It says UTXOracle has been automatically configured with recommended defaults. Make whatever changes you want, then click save. And then there's something called argument. Then year, month, day. It just wants me to input that, and I don't know why. Why does it not?
okay, can you hit enter without any arguments?
I pressed save, and I'm starting it. That just feels like a bug in the package. Like the
Okay.
fact that it's called argument instead of naming
Like,
what it is. It
Gives
actually
you a
wants you to
date or,
do. Feels
whatever
like
your thing
someone.
is. Yeah.
Do you know who packaged this?
Yeah, well, I just met the guy on Twitter. It's just something he did as like a hackathon, like quick job. Like, he didn't spend a ton of time on it, but I was super grateful that he did it. That argument that you were talking about is like, you can get the price chart for whatever day you want since 2020. So if you don't want just like the current price, you can just run it in historical mode and get whatever price chart, whatever day you want.
The UI failed.
Okay.
So UTXOracle exit code file not found. So this is
what
this
the
is-
file does it want?
Time to ask Claude.
well, no.
No,
I love
What
podcasts
happened?
that are just tech support, like two guys trying to. That's my favorite.
One day I'll work on the Star 9 version myself. It's a lot to do.
I can help you out with that too.
Let's hit. We actually don't have a remarkable amount of news items, but
Well, we could talk about 444 a bit as well, how that's sort of changed. 'Cause there's some interesting.
I want to hit some government stuff real quick because
Oh.
it's just kind of funny how back and forth it is. So the Czech National Bank purchases digital assets for the first time. They have a $1 million asset test portfolio. Then, and this includes Bitcoin, a USD stablecoin, and a tokenized deposit, which I didn't understand. I think they're like making their own thing. Then, so Czech National Bank is like, all right, let's entertain this Bitcoin thing. Spain proposes a 47% Bitcoin tax and new seizure rules. Spain is like, F your Bitcoin, we're going to tax the hell out of it. We're going to take it from you. They are trying to raise the top tax rate on Bitcoin gains to higher than all the other things, and then classify all digital assets as seizable. Then Texas makes a historic $10 million Bitcoin treasury purchase. So they've become the first U.S. state to actually acquire Bitcoin directly for its treasury. They bought $10 million worth via BlackRock's IBIT ETF.
So close.
Now, so damn it. Now they did say, yes, we made the purchase via the ETF, but the intention is to move to self-custody. This is just the first step. So that's something they
Really?
made the recognition that like we didn't really buy Bitcoin yet.
Wouldn't that mean that they'd have to sell it and buy it again proproperly? Like you can't
No
withdraw
idea.
from an ETF, can you?
I think the like for like actually works now. I think legally there's like I don't know exactly how it works, but I was pretty sure I read that not too long ago there's some sort of a ability to redeem or something at an institutional level that you can trade in like paper Bitcoin for actual Bitcoin, and it doesn't register somehow as a sale and a purchase. But I could be wrong, and it might be specific to one very isolated thing. But yeah, so, and obviously this just follows the fact that Texas is formalizing Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset.
There's so much Bitcoin activity. Half of the conferences I go to are in Texas, man.
Yeah, dude, Texas is all in.
Yeah,
it's pretty dope. Pretty dope. If anybody has any comments on that, otherwise, I'm happy to dig more into 444. Because I still, my picture of it is still a bit vague.
I'll let Mechanic explain 444, but can you, the thing I'm interested in is this detail about some mini script weird edge cases that would become invalid on the soft fork. I don't understand why that's a big deal, because like all transactions that have spam are going to become invalid on the temporary soft fork. Can you, in your like explanation, can you mention that? Because that seems like the biggest hang up for a lot of people on this soft fork.
I don't understand miniscript well enough. Unfortunately, I'm still like trying to make head or tail of it myself in a lot of ways.
All right.
So I don't know. Like I do know that initially, like the drama around op-if was bothering people a lot, and I was trying to dig into that a bit. I'm still not really there, but it does seem like the entire point of Taproot is so that instead of using op-if, you make different leaves for stuff, and then it's that's the whole efficiency gain of it, is that you only reveal one of the leaves. So instead of revealing a whole function or something that has if this, else this, else this, else this, and having to write all that on chain, you just reveal one of the paths. That was the whole point of Taproot. So Luke's assertion that people using op-if are retarded if they're using it in Taproot. So we're just disabling that because that's what the inscriptions guys use. Yeah, they can use other stuff, but let's kill op-if. And obviously people are using it, but he just keeps yelling that you just stop designing your stuff in such a stupid way, like stop using op-if. So that was like one thing to comment on that I didn't really get, but maybe other people do or have some pushback again. But other than that, I think when it comes to things, miniscript specifically, I'm just way too out of my depth.
I think it's the same thing. It's the same op-if thing. Same thing category, yeah.
So I think other than that, like he pushed it, he's now doing it as an MASF with a much longer time frame, which is fun. But like that was sort of something I can't believe I agreed with, but I did end up agreeing with it because it just means miners can activate it sooner if you still have a lock-in on timeout. And he's extended the timeout. So it's this sort of Damocles concept. Like if the network ever gets too annoyed with spam, they can turn around to the miners and say, why aren't you activating this soft fork that's been around for a while? And the pressure can grow from there. And anyone that's saying, well, we don't want to, they have to then offer their rationale for why they don't want to. And you get into the Bitmain against SegWit territory. Like, why are you guys actually against this? We don't think you have a good reason. And then the pressure can build and build on that premise. So that's kind of where things have ended up with it. I think a lot like the whole proactive approach is now the main thing. There's no reactive approach left. That's sort of a read between the lines kind of thing now, right? Because if someone uploads CSAM into the blockchain and everyone collectively decides, all right, we need to just get that out of there, then you have 444 reworked in the reactive case where a couple of big miners to say, all right, we're starting from 3 blocks ago. We're just going to mine from then and just not include this thing in the blockchain. That seems to have been like sort of decided is a thing we don't need to talk about anymore because it's so controversial, but something that might suddenly become not controversial and just what everyone wants to do. But it's only being worked on at the moment in the proactive sense. So it's definitely not Luke working on it. Dathan is definitely not Luke because Luke doesn't approve of it in its current form. And then that's pretty much it with it. I think he's going to release an activation client in the first couple of weeks of December, and then we'll just see what happens with it after that.
What about like replay attacks, or it's weird to call them attacks, but like, so if we're in the situation where we have a soft fork and we kind of have like we have a chain split, we have these kind of the legacy thing and the soft fork chain kind of go in action, does a regular user of Bitcoin need to decide which chain they want to broadcast their transaction on, or like, is it kind of going to be assumed that if you broadcast it on either chain, somebody's going to replay it on the other chain? I mean, is replay kind of like a good thing in a way?
It means that the state is less tolerable, generally speaking, right? So that should mean it resolves faster. Assuming that the fork chain is the minority, the nodes on that chain they're going to have very lapse banning policies. This is intentional, because otherwise you'd end up with two different sets of nodes not talking to each other at all, because they'd all ban each other, right? Like core would ban knots and knots would ban core, because they keep doing stuff that's like speaking two different languages, even though the chains, are acceptable in both cases on the core side, if that makes sense. But intentionally in scenarios like this, the fork nodes are made more tolerant. So even though the core nodes keep broadcasting some silly chain from the perspective of the fork nodes, they don't ban any of the nodes that do that. So they still hear about all the transactions and they still include them and broadcast them on their side, and vice versa. All from the core node's perspective, assuming core goes, rejects the fork, but not with the URSF, but just doesn't go along with the new rule. The core nodes will receive all the transactions from the fork nodes, and the fork nodes will receive all the transactions from the core nodes. And the ones that are valid on both chains will end up in both blockchains. And
okay, that's a very different behavior though, because typically in node software, if you realize that you're not on the same block number as another node, and a node has send you a block that you consider invalid, and they do that multiple times, the node typically stops listening to that other node as a peer. So like that I'm pretty sure that logic is in all existing nodes.
Are you saying the node would stop? If you keep getting blocks that you keep rejecting, you would stop listening to the node sending it to you.
Yeah, because you're you as a node, you're constantly.
Well, that's intentionally loosened inside a fork client. Like a UASF client intentionally loosens that so as not to bifurcate itself off the chain and the network that's ignoring the new rule.
Okay, so then what it has to do then is it has to stop sending its blocks to core nodes that it is connected to. Otherwise, those core nodes are going to reject it. They're going to stop listening.
They might not even be requesting it, right? Because if they're already 3 blocks ahead by their own count, and you have some competing block from 3 ago, that just looks like you just fell behind for whatever reason, which is a normal condition, because you're not sending them an invalid block, right? You're the one with the more stringent rule set. So the fork client says, hey, I've got a new block from 3 blocks ago from your perspective. And then they say, nah, you've fallen behind. There's been a reorg since then. That one got orphaned, I guess.
Yeah. And also you're probably going to want to stop sending, like the fork client is probably going to want to stop sending transactions to the core clients too, because at first it'll be fine. The UTXO sets are going to be the same and all things are going to be the same, but eventually you're probably going to get into a place where the UTXO sets are significantly different, and a coin that's spendable here is not spendable there. And then like if you start sending that node like invalid transactions, it'll probably stop listening to you too. I don't know. I mean, I'm out of my depth here, but
me too. I mean, Luke has worked on this stuff before, and UASF was designed with all this stuff in mind. Like BIP444 was deliberately designed to not fork itself off. the unconfirmed transaction pools, like diverging massively, would probably result in nodes being hostile to each other as well. And I don't know how that's accommodated for either.
Okay.
But again, everything is all valid. Everything the UASF chain is doing is valid. All they're doing differently is just rejecting some newer blocks.
Right.
But that is going to result in them receiving a divergent set of unconfirmed transactions too. I don't know the implications of that, and I don't know if you can tolerance is all on one side, because maybe you, at that point, the core intolerance of you broadcasting already spent No, it wouldn't matter. Actually, it wouldn't, because again, it's just a very common scenario anyway that a whole bunch of nodes you're connected to are sending you a block you already have a different version of, like same height, but a different version. That happens like once a day, right? Where two pools find a block at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And like a bunch of nodes on the network say, hey, I have this block for you. And they tell that to a node that says, I already have a block and it doesn't look like that. And that doesn't result in mass banning. There's already just tolerance of that built in. And there's also going to be a difference in transaction inclusion there as well. So unfortunately, this is the kind of stuff that nodes can either tolerate, which makes the whole mechanism by which you do a UASF that wasn't particularly popular quite viable. Or if you harden nodes to this, it's kind of like the Portland HODL attack, where he was trying to like waste bandwidth of Comcast users that have like bandwidth caps and stuff, like by just repeatedly IBDing over and over and over again. And people were like, well, good, we can harden nodes and make them less susceptible to this attack. But there isn't really a way to do it. Nodes kind of have to just be like, oh, you've requested IBD from me 19 times. All right, I guess we'll go for a 20th. Like if you start banning peers that do that stuff, it makes the network so much more hostile that it would end up just being really annoying for people, genuine IBD users. Like I think no one can figure out a good way to stop griefing like that.
Yeah. I mean, there is some of that already built in, though, I think. I mean, your node's always looking for other nodes and always like letting go of nodes that aren't useful to it, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm always getting that message like, one of the peers is stalling IBD, dropping it and finding another one. I'm forever doing IBD, so always seeing that.
What's the activation threshold of whatever
I don't know. I think he was thinking of dropping it to 55%, which is not that crazy, but the point is, if you set it to 95%, then Wang Chun personally will just say no, and then it won't happen, which is ridiculous. Like, why should one guy be able to say that? Like, we had this scenario with a Bitmain before saying no. Now it would just be Wang Chun saying no, because he's all data is ones and zeros believer.
Who's Wang Chun?
Yeah,
Which one does he run? Or what's he?
F2
F2 pool. Okay. I knew the name, but I didn't know where from.
Interesting times, man. Interesting soft fork times. I feel like in a way we've entered into a different game theory world with this kind of this soft fork thing. Like we're thinking about things.
This, in my opinion, is still very different from the previous user activated soft fork, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't have a strong hold on how any of this would play out in my mind.
We didn't talk about this stuff during the block wars. Like this is new territory.
The main difference is we're not activating a bunch of sleeping logic in core, which was SegWit, that like we could just like force core nodes to consider SegWit active. Like the rules aren't dormant inside core. They literally don't exist. So you're doing something far more alien to the majority of the network. You're activating a rule they've never heard of. Whereas in UASF time, sure, we were a tiny minority of intolerant people, but we were activating stuff that core was looking to be activated because SegWit was in there. It was just in its unactivated state. So there definitely was some more signaling of intent. Like everyone's running unactivated SegWit. They clearly want SegWit, and it's just a couple of miners that aren't letting us do it. But I mean, it wasn't that clear cut, right? Because all of the B caches were against SegWit directionally. They were like, this represents a change of approach, even though it's not a stupid thing to do, regardless, fixing transaction malleability. It's being done instead of making blocks bigger, even though it did make blocks bigger. Like it's being done instead of that, and we don't want to go that way. So it became a political football. and symbolic of a bad direction from the big blocker perspective. So there were plenty of nodes that said we hate this, but they did fork themselves off. So I don't know. Same team really behind this UASF. Though I mean, Luke didn't support UASF initially, and then he suddenly was like, "I do support it now." And I think that can be the case with 444 as well, because he's against the way it is written now. But I think in some circumstances, there's one where he just says, "Well, this is the best option we have, and we now no longer have a choice. Like big op returns are causing a problem. I mean, let's change consensus to not allow them anymore. Like they were basically blocked with a filter before, but we had to get rid of the filter because of political angles and things like that. But either way, no one wants 100 kilobyte or 1 megabyte op returns for that matter. There's no reason for 1 megabyte op returns to be consensus valid, and they are. So if you can block them with a filter to 99% effect, that's worked pretty well, but that's gone now. So the only real path left is blocking it at consensus. And then it just becomes about, all right, well, what about the Taproot holes? Do we want to fix them at the same time? And that's why it becomes this whole temporary soft fork thing, because it disables all other soft forks for a year, because all the upgrade hooks are dead as well. So if we want to add anything else during the 444 time, we won't be able to. But it's not like anyone is itching to add a soft fork in the next 15 months, right? So that would allow us 3 months until February, right? Until 444 would theoretically activate. But I mean, that's already been pushed out to September now. So there would be a year where you couldn't activate a soft fork.
For this to activate, do we have to have a majority of NOTS nodes to avoid a chain split?
Well, 444 isn't NOTS. This will be its own activation client, just like UASF wasn't core. It was its own thing. So I don't know if this is going to end up in NOTS. I don't think it's definitely not going to start that way. It's built on top of NOTS, and it has all the normal filters you'd expect with NOTS, but it's not a release from the NOTS team, right? Okay. This is Dathan, who's made a fork of NOTS and has made a UASF client that allows for minor signaling. And I also want to point out that all the activation stuff for soft forks in Bitcoin Core is all broken. None of it worked, and Dathan has iterated on it and made it all work again. So if any fork happens, whether it's anti-spam or a covenant or anything like that, they're going to end up cherry picking from all the stuff that Dathan has done for this, because BIP9 broke. BIP8 has been completely destroyed, and someone had to go in and make all this work again. And, it's all just kind of dead code at this point that's been revitalized. And it's modified BIP9, which is what Taproot ended up using, but it fell into disrepair and had to be repaired again. So if there's any fork going to happen at all, this whole conversation needed to happen, because some things like you start down a path that doesn't ultimately work out, but things that happened on that path had to have happened for another path to be unlocked, if that makes sense. So I'm pretty sure some fork is going to happen, whether it's 444 or not. And if and when it happens, this whole conversation around 444 needed to have happened in order for that to have gone where it got. The conversation has progressed rapidly, and he's doing a lot of work. Though I think the conversation's kind of quietened down a little bit while he works on the activation client. But pretty soon, I'm expecting, I think probably around the second week of December, there'll be an activation client for 444. And then I guess we'll see if there's massive resistance to it, or it just dies in obscurity, or people like it, or there's some sort of black swan event where people are like, wow, we really need this, and it came at just the right time. Or there's a URSF client that comes in, to resist it formally. Who knows what's going to happen?
So this is a whole separate node implementation that has to be run, or is the activation client something anybody can adopt?
Yeah, anyone can run it. It's not ground up again. It is just a fork of NOTS. But yeah, it's just not going to be an official NOTS release.
So migrating from core to this version is not going to be super difficult, or?
No, it would just be a different node. I mean, the whole point is someone will have to
Yeah, it's
package
just a
it for
different-
Umbrel and Start9 for most
It's
people to
just a
build
different
run it.
client. Yeah.
So, okay, but it is like, I mean, I guess you could import your history or something if you wanted to, but it is like spinning up a whole new node.
You don't even need to do that. You just leave the directory where it is. Like you have you in Linux, it's always the home folder /.bitcoin. And then in there, you have the blockchain, you have the chain state, you have the wallet, you have like the mempool you just have a bunch of files in there. All you would do is you stop your Bitcoin core node and you just start the client node instead and tell it the data directory to look at. And it'll be like, oh, okay, I already have a blockchain and I already have this configuration file, and it just runs exactly the same way. So that's how it works for like an upgrade of core as well. Like it's just
in the same like vein of think, like if we've got a competition between node implementations or whatever, is it possible that we could just have enough knots adoption with people setting their own filters that all of this becomes kind of moot? Or
I mean, maybe I think it depends what you're looking at, because I think Citria is already like kind of not able to get going because they're really weird. They need like everyone to see their rollups in their mempools basically at the same time. And there's 20% of the network that isn't going to see a Citria rollup because they filter inscriptions, which is how the Citria rollups are formatted. So I already think that's kind of prohibitive for them. Like they're really weird because the whole pushback against filters was always it can get in the chain anyway, but that isn't their concern. They want to make sure it's in everyone's mempool because that's what they need for their project. And if it ends up in the chain afterwards, they actually don't care. They need the mempools, which is a very specific request.
What would they need so many? I mean, I understand how they would want 20%.
And I guess I just don't understand how the justice transaction or the enforcement transaction and
that's different. That's the fail case. That's a different thing. That uses a fake pub key, which even NOTS nodes will accept. That and there's only a couple of them a year in normal circumstances, and that's what the whole conversation was about: making op return bigger so that they could use op returns instead of fake pub keys. But the rollups are inscriptions, and they are way more data.
Are inscriptions. Okay.
So no one really spoke about that, and I didn't realize it until a friend of mine pointed it out. He was like, if Citria is successful, every block is going to be 5 giant transactions that are just Citria rollups. And that's all you'll see in the blockchain. They will use up all of the space. They'll be incredibly big. And the final insult is that they don't even need them. They just needed them in people's mempools. They never needed them in the actual blockchain, but they just end up there anyway because miners pick them up as regular transactions and mine them. But once they're in there, they serve no purpose to Citria or Bitcoiners, and they use up all the block space. So this feels like a horrible tragedy of the commons kind of scenario, and it really didn't enter the discussion until a couple of weeks ago when someone pointed out to me that that's their design. It only happens that way if they're successful, but I'm sure they plan to be successful.
Something you said to me like last talk has been like kind of making me feel uncomfortable for the last month. Like if fees continue to go down like they are, like the incentive for mining pools to just mine empty blocks just gets higher and higher.
Yeah.
And like seriously, like we're lucky. I mean, with all the risks that might be associated with putting something terrible on chain, a mining pool is like, why am I putting in transactions when I'm only making $1 a month and I'm getting $10 million a month just for the block? Why am I adding risk for $1 a month? Like, why do I put any transactions in at all?
Sure, but I mean, the opposite has been what's happened. They just spontaneously all agreed to lower the price of what they're selling block space for. So clearly, like you'd think that if they stopped doing it and they said, all right, we're doing blocks only, we have no mempool anymore. If they did that, then in theory, you really need your transaction in the chain. So you start paying really high fees to try and incentivize them to actually put it in the chain. Like you spend $1,000 on your transaction just so a miner mines it. And in theory, that means they open it back up again because it starts to become worth it. So supply and demand should balance things out right now. And I mean, I mean, but the real effect of it would probably just be everyone goes off chain, right, and starts,
They
using
gotta start setting
custodians.
minimum. I don't understand, man. I would think the mining pools would kind of get together and just kind of agree to start setting minimum TX fees. I don't understand that dynamic.
The weirdest thing ever, like mempool space were like, who's ready for subsat per vbyte summer? And then they spoke to like 2 mining pools who just unilaterally like, we are gonna single-handedly ruin the price of the block space market, and
Why would they do that?
mine like a day's worth of blocks that contain transaction fees less than 1 sat per byte. Make an extra like $800 doing it, and now everything is like below that line that they just I don't understand it. It wasn't a prisoner's dilemma thing because they agreed to do it together
Yeah.
for some reason. And I think a lot of the agenda was we need to prove filters don't work, because even though every node out there is filtering this stuff, it will still end up in blocks. But weirdly, F2Pool and via BTC never did it. They never got involved with it. But Antpool and all of their little, front running pools did it. And that was enough to make it look like they're like, miners are getting around this stuff. I'm like, well, it's really just one company that decided to do it. Then Foundry jumped in a couple of weeks later after it all started. But F2Pool and Via never did. So you still have like 20% of the network there that's like, I'm not doing this. People can actually pay if they want to get in my blocks. I'm not going to let you fill up like a quarter of my block for like $40. This is ridiculous. So like, I don't know why it happened. None of it makes sense to me. It's all an artifact of centralization, that a couple of people can do something stupid and economically irrational, and it makes the blockchain look completely different. Like
Right.
that's an artifact of centralization. If you had decentralized mining, things should be more predictable as a result.
I was about to say, this is literally the thing that gets me about all of this, is that we immediately are asking like, okay, so what does F2Pool do? Okay, what's Bitmain going to do? And even with a miner activated soft fork or anything, that's all we're asking. And somehow the people who say that this op return issue is about mining centralization, and everybody is kind of just ignoring that fact, is that the failure to recognize that this is a problem because of this, because of how centralized everything already is. And the idea, like, none of this is going to make a dent in any of this, and none of this is going to change any of this. Like, we're completely talking around the issue with all this shit about like whether or not mempool is perfectly in line with consensus or not. It's like, who gives a shit? We have 5 people who are going to decide whether or not a soft fork is going to happen or not, or whether or not the standardization on like what the fee is in 80% of the blocks that get produced. Just like, if for all the talk of all of these things, what's actually being done about that? Like, even like, and I watched somebody had made like a little dashboard of, and I want to like double look into this because this would be really cool, that Stratum V2 is like 5% adopted, but I'm pretty sure it's Stratum V2 purely in the like, oh, I have an encrypted connection. Like we have Stratum V2 support is 5% adopted.
We really need a different word.
Not that
for
any
it.
nodes are actually building their own block templates, or that these pools actually let you build your own block templates, which is the problem. That's the problem. And I don't understand how all these people who wax.
Yeah, Stratum V2 is like, the pool that supports it is Brains, which not only doesn't let the miners make their own templates, the pool doesn't either. Bitmain does. So like, they've moved in the opposite direction from the main goal, which, but it's celebrated as a step forward in decentralization.
Well,
And
it makes no
isn't.
sense, because it's like, what's the step forward? Like, is this not like the problem is very, very clear, and it's not even related to the problem if that's the case,
Yeah, I mean, the trouble is Stratum V2 and the job declarator element of Stratum V2 should have been 2 separate projects so that people could, treat them as independent things. Like, Stratum V2 is an improvement to Stratum V1. It isn't a redesign of mining and pool dynamics, miner pool dynamics, where the miner gets to choose what gets in blocks and broadcast it directly to the network. That's not a part of the Stratum protocol. It's just like, it's a whole independent piece of software that lets you tell your miners, give your miners work that you create locally based off of what your node generated as a template. Like, that's just that can't be an afterthought to encrypting the communication between a pool and a miner. That's not, it's an entire redesign of it and targeting a different thing. I don't know what it is. It's like you're manufacturing a car and you're getting into like the design of tarmac around a car, like a town. It's like that's a different element of what this is, right? Or the other way around, I would put it. It's like, that's not, you're going outside of your boundaries. Like your BMW, you don't make tires. Like, that's someone else does that. Like, you know.
Well, actually, on and this is kind of getting back to the news items, but mining, there was a Mugina or Muina or something. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. There's a new open source Bitcoin mining software that's supposed to be for ASICs, and it's Mugina or Muino S, however the hell you say it, Mugina. And right now they literally only support the BitAxe Gamma or whatever, but like that's just like their first, like, okay, this one's supported, and they're gonna like go up the stack basically. And they have plans for like 5 more, including the S19J. And then their intent is to basically support everything in a fully custom open source mining software or whatnot to essentially, help re-decentralize mining and let you to connect to any various pool or use, as I understand it, actually, I could be totally wrong on how it's implementing a Stratum v2 or Datum sort of thing.
I Googled it, and funnily enough, the first result was Mugina mining most commonly refers to the illegal mining of coltan in the Mugina sector of Rwanda's Common district.
Branding. What great name.
And like the next result is there was a landslide killing 2 people in this illegal mining operation. Like, just they're definitely going the samurai marketing route. Like,
yeah, they are.
I don't know, but look, AXOS is open source anyway. Those guys are like the most militant. They're the kind of open source people that will like kill you for also being open source, but using a slightly different license than the one. That, like, I've seen these guys fight. It's vicious, dude. They're all threatening to like lawfare against one another. And it really, FOSS Nazis really annoy me, to be honest. Like, I don't think anyone is obligated to open source anything they write. They're just not. Like, it really annoys me that people are like, you wrote some code, you have to share that with me. Otherwise, it's back to that first discussion we were having today. Like, they're like, you have to do a thing, otherwise you hate freedom. It's like, that's not how this works, man. Like, it's my code on my computer. I definitely don't have to share it with you if I don't want to.
I've open sourced maybe 1/1,000,000th of all the code I've written, and that's never going to change.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Anthropic owns every bit of code that I own. I've never read the terms and conditions, but all the little single purpose apps I've built, I'm pretty sure 100% Anthropic has the rights to all of it.
Hilarious. Well, you should read the terms and conditions. That's stumping a lot of people at the moment, like, because big organizations are all adopting AI to do some code stuff for them. And there was like a discussion about BIP3 on the mailing list as well, where, there was an argument about whether to allow AI submissions or whether not to allow AI submissions, or whether to ask people to declare if they've used it or not. And like, there's like strong opinions in either direction on that. I was saying, I think the etiquette in open source should just basically become, if you've used AI to write some of your code for you, just be honest about it. Like, tell them how much, to what scope you used it. Like, you can just be, I asked it to write some like skeleton code for me and I took it from there, or I wrote it all myself and AI buttoned it up for me. Like, just tell them what you did. And if you're found lying about it and people are like, look, this looks written by AI and you never said that, then people are going to stop reviewing your stuff. And that to me is like a pretty good social agreement that I think people would adhere to.
I was about to say, I think that's more than effective or more than enough.
I think so.
Because, I think in some contexts, it'll be like, did you use autocorrect to finish writing this sentence, or did you write it yourself? And it's like, well, I mean, like depending on, like if somebody submits 20,000 lines of code, it's like, okay, well, if this is just a bunch of AI slop, there's going to be bugs galore through this. But if somebody submits 10 lines of code and it works, it like does the thing, and you can easily just review that it's sound, and people who have engineering sense, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's written by AI. It matters whether or not the code is sound, So I don't know, but I agree. I think it just kind of becomes a simple thing. It's like, okay, are you submitting a whole bunch of crap that's just going to be full of bugs because you have no idea what you're doing? Like if I submitted a commit request or some shit, like a submitted code to Bitcoin, it would be nothing but Claude, and it would be an utter mess. Well, because of that, people would probably poke holes in it very, very quickly, and then they'd be like, please don't submit anymore because you don't know what you're doing.
I think it'll work itself out naturally in the way that kind of homemade food is differentiated from fast food. Like AI generated code's always going to be fast food. I mean, like, yeah,
I like that analogy.
Like a handmade painting or something is always going to be worth more than the massively produced print, and it's always going to be obvious. I mean, either a human understands every line of the code or they don't. I mean, it's I don't know. I think that's going to work itself out naturally. But I use AI for, like, when I write UTXOracle stuff, I always like write my function by hand, and then I just send it to ChatGPT to improve it. And sometimes I take its suggestions, sometimes I don't. I mean, but yeah, I definitely use it in everything I do.
Yeah, I would find it hard not to use these days. Like, even if you know exactly what you're doing, like, it's just a time saver.
So such a time saver.
But you also just need to know exactly, even if you're just getting it to do something for you, you have to know what it's doing. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've tried to get Claude to troubleshoot something or work through some sort of thing, and it doesn't fully understand the structure, the reasoning behind a bunch of stuff, and something that I've even like gone over with Claude before. It doesn't remember everything in context perfectly. Yeah. And like I have to, I call it arguing with Claude to produce something because half the time I'm telling it to, like, please, no, don't do that, because this is why this is in place. Please memorize that this is in place for this reason. Write it into Claude MD so that we don't have to go over this shit again. Yeah. But you're misunderstanding what the code is doing. And so, like, as long as I understand the structure, like if I just give it to go, which sometimes I will, sure, it will produce a whole bunch of stuff, and then I just kind of have to trust it or whatever. But I find myself basically getting to a point where as soon as it starts breaking, I can't continue forward because I don't know what's actually occurred up to that point. Like, if I don't understand the structure of the things and how they work together,
you can't help it.
Using it doesn't scale. It doesn't scale because I can't guide it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
I probably got to go here in a little bit, guys.
Gotcha. Well, let's hit. I want to talk about Samurai Wallet in just a second, but there's actually some other thing on mining because we mentioned Bitmain a couple times. Did you know that they're actually under a federal probe right now for a national security risk?
Yeah, I did hear about that.
So the Senate Intelligence Committee has warned that Bitmain devices could be manipulated by China, and it's the TikTok China scare, and that they have several China. Several disturbing vulnerabilities and potential remote control. Bitmain denies it and all that stuff, but they're like under investigation for whether or not Bitmain devices should be considered safe for American Bitcoin miners.
So ant bleed again? This is like
ant bleed,
ant bleed 2.0,
something like that.
I mean,
or at least somebody thinks that there's a risk of it, I think, is really the thing.
They are the most I mean, there's no way they're not all backdoored, right? That's kind of.
I mean, they were at least once before. So yeah, who knows?
I don't know, man. I do know that like remote code execution is still a thing. Then it shouldn't be. Like a miner, a 3 kilowatt Bitcoin mining machine reaches out of plain text to a pool that can then just respond with, the most trivial stuff that can get the control board to start doing generic computation. Like that's the workarounds they implemented for that, as far as I know, didn't work. And I would put it down to sloppiness more than malice.
Mm-hmm.
So is that a kind of thing this government probe could be like, this stuff is so bad, the software on it is so appallingly, shockingly badly written that it's a national security risk, given that there's like 1 million of these computers running in like Texas and places like that. Is that can it be done on that premise? Like, this isn't malicious, this is just absolute incompetence, and it's gone to the point. Like, it's all plain text, right?
Listen,
so anyone in the middle
mean.
can like start doing.
We're not
shit
doing
with these
anything bad.
machines.
We're just retarded. Please be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if that can be the basis for the probe, though. This isn't like, these are such badly made devices that they are now a genuine security threat. Is that a thing? Or, I mean, do they imply what the basis is in the probe?
They just say it's a national security threat. I think it's just purely to like American infrastructure running on Chinese hardware.
Is this part of a bigger like China's the boogeyman? Like the Republican boogeyman's always kind of in China,
that's
right? Especially,
kind of what I feel like. That's what it feels like to me, at least. That's my
bullshit,
base
right.
assumption.
Fair enough. When they ban Huawei phones for a while as well? Like,
Yeah.
they do occasionally just be like,
Routers.
China bad.
China bad, don't do this.
Yeah.
Is Jack's company an American company? Like Square or Block is an American company.
Block, Proto's US based, I think.
If they're getting ready to release new miners, and the US government's like, no, you have to buy the American miners.
I think they're using TSMC for the chips.
That would be a great bootleggers and Baptist relationship.
And then the samurai thing, right? Like he pled guilty, and this is that was exactly what I was going to ask, because this is confusing me. So they've pled guilty to running an unlicensed money transmission business, and Rodriguez was sentenced to 5 years, and Hill was sentenced to 4, and $250,000 fine each. But this is what I don't understand. Is that like, were they under the anticipation that this case was just going to be like this was going to go against them? Because I think it was Hill. I can't remember. If I understand, it was the money that made them say, we can't afford to fight this. Even if we could win or lose, we just don't have the lawyer fees. Like, they burnt through. They only made like single-digit millions, I think, from the entire samurai thing anyway. And
yeah.
I think they were advised, like, you will just run out of money very quickly if you don't take a plea deal here. So, and I think the prosecution knew that, and were like, well, you're desperate.
This is how they get their precedent set, and now they can just F everybody forever. That's so ridiculous. I think it was Hill was in an interview, and he said that the supposed claim in regards to like the criminal activity was that, usually like if they want to say that you were a money launderer, and your conspiracy to launder money is that you spoke directly with someone who was going to launder money. Like, that's why they do the sting operations, right? Is that you go to a peer-to-peer person who's buying and selling Bitcoin, like by the shitload, and you say, yeah, man, I just want to buy some Bitcoin from you. Totally not a cop, but I want to just buy a bunch of fake IDs on the dark web with this. And it's like, please shut up. Don't say that to me. Here's your Bitcoin. Boom. You laundered money because you heard what you spoke directly to the criminal, and you know what they're going to use it for. Whereas what he was saying in the interview, it was just a clip, but what he was saying is that it was recognized that they didn't have any knowledge or any specific contact with anybody who was a criminal who was using using Samurai Wallet, but that they had knowledge that criminals could use it for bad reasons, for criminal reasons. And therefore it was officially like money laundering. It falls under the same punishment. He said, like, can you imagine like how insane, like the breadth, like how broad that it's like literally that like if you have to just be dumb that like, well, obviously I make shoes, but criminals can't wear my shoes.
Yeah.
You know, but then if you recognize that, like, if you make a commercial in which a criminal is running away from a store with shoes and they have stolen something, now you're immediately guilty of aiding and abetting.
Did they cite the social media stuff? Because to me, that always felt like the motivation.
It's because they were brazen.
But was that cited, or did they was that the elephant in the room the whole time? Did they say, yeah, you clearly look at this tweet where you're saying Russian oligarchs should use
I'm
your
pretty
servers.
sure it was explicitly used against them, but I could be wrong. That may just be an impression because of the conversations around it. But I'm 80% certain I thought I read it that it was specifically brought up. So, and I would assume that that's where they would go. Like that's what they would go hard with. So I would be surprised if it wasn't, like directly used.
I won't go into specifics, but I do know there is another team that's into doing similar things on Bitcoin that don't go to America ever. Not because they're in trouble there in a way they know about, but because they've been told by legal experts in their jurisdiction, you shouldn't go to America. You're going to have a very hard time if you do. And I also know someone else that works on a similar thing that travels around pretty much freely. So, and I don't really understand why that is. It has to be as you just, it seems you agree that it was literally, you've been embarrassing us on Twitter, so now we're going to ruin your life and
I think that's the way it usually happens.
Right, but they're so petty, hey? Do they really need to
Did you
flex
expect
like that?
the government to be any different, though?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
I feel like bureaucracies don't have the capacity for pettiness. That's an individual thing. I never know how a government agency can be petty. I don't get that.
Well, they're collectively all equally petty. I mean, it's you think about it, they are petty people by design. It's like saying that oh, why would all the journalists just get behind this COVID thing and say that unvaccinated people can't get a hospital bed? But they did it. They were all equally shitty and petty people.
Well, there was literally somebody said you should have heard what he said about us, about Roger Ver. And so it's literally always that. That's the bureaucrat that wants to go after his next door neighbor because, or some his friend's business competition, right? It's always some sort of nonsense things, arbitrary.
You always have to keep in mind too that all of these systems, things only really get done because one person's really mad and petty about it and they push to get it done. The system itself just kind of punches the numbers, punches the check boxes and runs the numbers and stuff. And it's a system, and that's why you talk to other people, and other people even inside of it will just be I don't know, this doesn't make any sense, but this is my job. I got to push the paper, and you don't really you have to call this person to sort this thing out. But behind it, there's a DA who just is pissed that how dare you say that you're not going to listen to the rules of New York? It's literally just a petty person who has too much power, who's just using it to get back at someone who they feel. It's just if you read something on Twitter, it's all the people who support, I don't know, knots, or all the people who support core are stupid. And you're not even a part of this conversation. You read it and you're I'm not stupid. And then you just want to go after them. That's what it is. It's just that I have power and I'm actually going to go after you because you said something that's how dare you? How dare you? I'm the one. You're going to do what I say.
Or a career hungry person that just like, well, I put all of these people.
I'm looking for an
the
easy win.
Specialist, yeah. I'm the
true.
crypto specialist that put all these crypto criminals in jail, and so I can be
just a different form of petty.
Yeah, and it's just I can be appointed to the new crypto crime department or something.
Yeah, that's someone can make a career for themselves. Something hungry, young, fed. And then otherwise, it's just someone from up top keeps squashing the lower downs. Like, these guys need to be in jail. I don't care how you do it, just do it. And then,
well, that actually, what's the guy that was the regulator that ended up working for Coinbase or something? Like, he like made a name for himself, and then
got a job at Coinbase.
Yeah, he like created all the regulations, and then went and
the guy who was responsible for the New York thing.
Yeah,
the like real shitty one.
Bit
I
license.
can't remember his name, but I know the bit license. Yeah, but I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah, I remember that. Well, I want to share one more thing that I just thought was funny. I mean, part of me is like, dude, that sucks for that guy, because it's like, okay, Bitcoin's not confiscatable. But also, like, I just cannot believe that we're in 2025, or I guess this was in 2022 when this happened. And you don't have a backup. Like, you don't have it. So Michael Prime was, I got hit by the FBI, and they raided, took his computer and stuff. And he said that he reported to only owning between it's like $200 to $1,500 worth of Bitcoin. So like $1,000 or something. And, the FBI apparently as a policy, I've never even heard of this, but after they check your computer and investigate to try to find all the things they can find, if they can't find anything, or whether they do or not, they wipe the hard drive. They re-zero out the hard drive. So you don't ever get anything back from any of your devices. You get a blank, useless piece of plastic when you get it back, because they don't want you to be able to see what they did or the software that they used, or get any footprint of that. Like, they're just being like, we can do whatever you want and you're not allowed to see anything that we did. Well, they wiped his hard drive, and apparently he actually had 3,443 Bitcoin on it.
Whoa.
And so he's trying to sue the FBI for Bitcoin that he didn't tell them he had, that they destroyed. And the 11th court, or the 11th circuit, said, well, you can't sue for this. And I'm just like, where's your seed phrase, man?
Yeah.
You had all of this completely subject like to 3,000, 3,500 Bitcoin.
I bet you he had it.
You don't have a backup?
No, he's got a backup. He's just trying to get a double that.
But why would you reveal that? You won. You won so hard. They wiped your hard drive. They believed you, your bullshit, that you only had $1,000 worth of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree. That feels like a desperation move. Like, he has a zero chance the FBI is going to be like, all right, we bought 3,500 Bitcoin at any price and gave them to you. Like, no way. I don't see it. Sorry.
Maybe he had like 300 Bitcoin and he lost, and now he's trying to sue the FBI for 3,000. I don't know. That's such a crazy, like, I don't know. How do you have that much Bitcoin and not know enough to back up your stuff?
I don't
know.
that.
That's crazy to me. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened before. People are stupid and they get complacent and they just have their setup the way they've had it. And they're like, I mean, how long, Jeff, have you and I talked about like, oh, we need to change this key setup or do this multi-sig thing. And then, 4 months go by and it's, oh, we need to change this thing, or we need to do this multi-sig thing.
I hate it.
Stuff just gets left. So
maybe his laptop is 15 years old and that was his hardware wallet.
I mean, that's what, right? That's what my friend did. And he was like, I didn't cut it on. I didn't cut it on in 10 years.
Dude, reviewing your setup and like re-practicing your words and like doing that, it's like the most cathartic thing in the world. It's like the feeling.
It's a great ritual. You got to just do it
out.
Yeah.
It's just like you get done with that and you just feel like so confident. It's like if you're having a bad day or just feeling
take
down,
charge
like,
of my shit.
It feels
your
cold storage, man. It feels so good.
Truth. Truth. That's
It
the
does.
call to action today, man. Go through
Yeah.
your setup. Make sure if your shit gets snagged by the FBI, don't let them be able to wipe your Bitcoin, dummy. Like get that catharsis. Go through your setup. Read through your seed phrase. Try to memorize it. Know where all your keys are and all your setup is. It's a good ritual. It's a good ritual.
All right, guys. I think
All
I
right.
got to end on that.
Yeah.
That's the January 3rd practice.
That's right.
Right.
And wait, what's the other
Proof of
thing we have to?
keys.
Steve, you're supposed to end every show with
2106.
yeah.
21.6 bug.
I heard it again today. Isn't it a problem that when the mining reward stops, Bitcoin will die? That is 40 years after Bitcoin has died, because Bitcoin is dying in 2106 as hard-coded into all software, knots, and core. They're
Yeah,
working
we
on
need to fix this in
2106.
BIP444.
No,
That's how you do it.
Well,
No.
the trouble is, it's a hard fork.
No.
it's a
I
hard
guess
fork
it
if
is a
we
hard
wait.
fork. That's right.
It's not a hard fork if we start early. It's not a hard fork. If we start late, it's a hard fork.
Wait, no, it's a hard fork no matter what.
Not if there's not a node that is in existence
It's
that will hard fork off.
Technically a hard fork, but if you have forward compatibility, if you have like forward recognition of it, and you don't have a node that's old enough, then there is no fork. It just occurs.
That's just a successful hard fork. That's all
Just
that
a
is.
successful hard fork, but that's the thing.
If we made a patch now and it like new versions where we're patched now, then in order for there to be a hard fork, somebody would have to get a new computer 80 years from now and install software that was written 80 years ago.
Yeah, you can obscure the fact that it's a hard fork by virtue of it being a complete success, but it's still a hard
Yes.
fork.
Correct.
Well, it's one of those definitions of hard
It's
fork.
a hard fork in consent
Like,
in the theory of the consensus, but it
in
is not a
theory,
hard fork in
but it's not a hard
practice.
fork in practice.
I'm taking the opposite perspective. Those
Okay.
are the only things that are hard forks. Everything else, like Bcash
Everything
and
else is just a
BSV and
shitcoin.
stuff, they are that exactly. They are an airdrop and they are a shitcoin. They are not hard forks. Hard forks are when the whole community says we actually have to break a rule and we're all going to do it together. And if that works out, it was a hard fork. If it doesn't, you're a shitcoin. Those are the actual terms for it. At least I think we need to. We cannot cede the linguistic territory of hard forks to Roger Ver and Craig Wright. I refuse
That's
to
fair.
do that.
Well,
That's fair.
it's kind of like, but then you get into like this gets into murky water, because if you were to take that position, I think you'd have to take the position that we all agree now that Bitcoin ends in 2106. Because like if we agree that Bitcoin continues past that, then we've already agreed to this, what you're calling a hard fork.
It's just a bug, so it's not really like maybe it's just a. I don't know. That's weird.
You say that. I reckon it's going to be the most controversial thing
It is.
ever.
That's why it needs to happen now. So it's
All
like,
ones and zeros are the same, man.
Yeah.
and it's not like we have to hard fork now. Like we can get ourselves into a situation where updated things and non-updated things work together fine for 80 years. And eventually, one at 2106, the non-updated ones stop. But like there won't be any of those left if we do it now. But anyway.
I think we should get
I'm on
it.
board. I'm on board.
I support it.
2106 fix. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right.
All right, guys.
See y'all next week.
Thank
or
y'all.
Next month.
See you guys.
Let's. I was about to say we're gonna have a hell of a next month. Not only will Christmas and everything will have gone by. Let's do this like right at the beginning of the year. Let's try to hit this on like proof of keys days, or proof of keys day or something. So everybody can actually have a holiday and chill the fuck out. But
right.
we're probably gonna have a new proposal. We're probably gonna have all kinds of drama about it. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be spicy. So let's get ready. I bet the mechanic derangement syndrome is going to get real good, because whatever
some
it is,
pressure
whatever
should come
happens,
off
it's your
me.
fault, mechanic. 100%.
Oh man, look, I think naively, I think with what's coming down the line, people are finally going to leave me alone. But I already know
naive
it's
shit.
naive. Yeah.
That's naive as shit. You're wrong. You were getting tagged in every single one of them.
I know, man.
All
It's
right, guys.
fun. All right.
Catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Later. And with that, we are wrapped. This has been Bitcoin Audible. Thank you guys for joining me. Don't forget to check out Ocean Mining and Mechanic and everything that he's doing. He's got plenty of lengthy explanations for his take on all of this, and he does a decent job of keeping up with the fork stuff that I don't really have time to get into right now. Definitely check out Steve and UTXOracle and everything that he's been working on. I love his project. He had a great presentation at BTC++ Durham. Check out my brother. People have Noster, Impubs, and Twitter and stuff for all of our stuff. Don't forget to subscribe to the show. Obviously, check out our amazing sponsors. We have got Ledin.io for Bitcoin-backed loans. We've got Synonym and PubKey.app. Download the PubKey Ring app and log in. I still can't believe that this is not normal. Like, this is not the way it works. Anyway, check that out. And don't forget to check out Chroma to get your light health in order and to get your circadian rhythm right. And lastly, the HRF and their amazing work and the incredible information they put out with the Financial Freedom Report and the Oslo Freedom Forum, and also for supporting my work. That's really awesome. And they're just a great group. With that, I guess that will wrap us. I don't think there's anything else to add. My favorite thing recently that I've really gotten into is Claude Code right in the terminal, which I probably need to get it into VS Code more than anything else. But I don't know, something about having it right in the terminal, because I just have a terminal window open and I've just built everything into like automated processes, and I can like edit apps while I'm using them and then restart them. All of my applications feel more ephemeral. They feel more like I can mold them and I can build my own little apps and scripts. And like I said at the beginning of this, I really want to make an episode or a video kind of breaking this all down, but it changes so much and I have so much of it that it's hard to. But anyway, that's my cool thing recently that I've been really into. And oh my God, and wholesale version 2. You know what? I'll talk about that in the next one, but really cool stuff to share. And I hope you guys check those things out. I'll try to have this link down in the show notes. With that, I will catch you on the next episode of Bitcoin Audible. My name is Guy Swann. And until then, everybody, that's my 2 sats.